Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name's Dave Zapponi. I'm the CEO of Echo. I want to say thank you for coming today. We really appreciate everything you're doing. Today is November 15th, 2025, and we're doing our legislative update and educational seminar. But before I do that, I wanted to say a few words about Echo, who we are, and we have a few awards that we'd like to give out at this time. I also want to welcome all of you online. We have about 70 people online, registered to be online, and I think we have 87 or so registered to be in the room today, board members. And then we have all of our professionals that are here. I think we have over 150 people that are signed up, and add maybe 160 or 70 counting the ones online. So thank you all for coming today. I very much appreciate it, and we're going to go ahead and kick off the program. So here we go. First of all, our premier sponsors will be walking up to the stage very soon, but it's Reliable Pavement Services and Sail Internet. Sail Internet's right over there, and the stairs over here, by the way. Our Q&A sponsors are Heritage Bank of Commerce, MindMe, Consortium LLC, Save a Tree, and, or actually food and beverage sponsors are Consortium LLC and Save a Tree. So thank you so much for their support. And our registration sponsor is MCD, so that's McMills Duffy, and they're a consulting group. AV sponsor is Omni, right down here. Wave yourselves, yeah, they're right down here. Good group. Thank you for coming, appreciate it. And our tabletop sponsors, this is a list of all the, I'm not going to go through each one of them, but you can see there's a good group of tabletop sponsors here, and Mary wanted me to do a call out to MindMe for helping them solve a water issue, and Sail Internet for their internet issue. So there you go, Mary, I did that because there's a facade requirement, a review inspection requirement in San Francisco that passed recently, and all buildings have to have their facades checked, and MindMe does that. So we'll have him speak in just a sec. Here's some more sponsors. And let's have a word from the premiers, and we're going to start with Sail Internet, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
Thank you so much. All right. How is everyone this morning? Hey, excellent. It's great to see you all. It's great to be out here. Thank you so much. We love this event. We are Sail Internet. We're the #1 rated internet provider in the Bay Area. We're a local company, privately owned. I see a lot of customers out there, so feel free to talk to them. Hi, Mary. We are fiber internet and technology for HOAs. So connected cameras, Wi-Fi, anything you need, we will provide it for you. And you can see us at the booth right over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I said, they did a really great project in San Francisco to help that community get their internet throughout their building, and they saved a lot of water because of that. So is Chris Lucas here? Come on up, Chris. And then Hooman Bolandi. Hooman, why don't you come on up and we'll let Chris catch up. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hooman Bolandi, and I'm the founder and CEO of MindMe Technology. We are an engineering and technology firm. If you need structural engineer, civil, as well as architects, we are here for you. And in about 3 hours, I'll be talking about how we can help you with your maintenance. Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you, Hooman. Appreciate you. And here's Chris Lucas with the Heritage Bank of Commerce.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody here. We are thrilled. I'm Chris Lucas with Heritage Bank of Commerce, and Sonia Lopez is right over there. Wave your hand, Sonia. And we are a business community bank located in the entire Greater Bay Area, but we have a very dedicated HOA specialty department that caters to homeowners associations and management firms. And we cover all of California and even out of the state. Please come and see us, and we'd love to talk to you about our services. Thank you.
Thank you. So those of you that are online, I'm sure you're familiar with Heritage Bank of Commerce as well. They have sponsored several of our events in Southern California, as well as many of those up here. We have the East Bay Resource Panel that Chris Lucas leads, and then Sonia actually leads the South Bay Resource Panel and Central Coast Resource Panel. So thank you for your volunteerism in helping ECHO grow. And so the disclaimer, read it quickly. We're not attorneys. We disavow any of our comments today. They're really not specific to your association. So if you have a specific question, really you need to talk to your attorney or a counsel, legal counsel, and get a specific recommendation. So who is ECHO? Quickly. We've been around for about 52 years now, and actually a little longer. We incorporated in '73. We're a nonprofit. I call us a philanthropic membership association because more than about 80% of our membership revenues come from HOA communities and the HOA homeowners themselves. So we very much appreciate it. We're here to advocate for you, to educate for you, and to create a networking environment so you can talk to some of the professionals in this industry and learn how to best serve your communities. We have about 1,000 members, and it's growing. This year, we've grown actually quite a bit. I think it's like 16% or so, so it's a pretty good year for us. Our mission is to foster a better quality of life in community associations through education, advocacy, and networking. And we call it Connection. So we do that, and all of our programming is built around that. So one of the things I like to say is, just to make it a little more real, is that we will provide, first of all, where did you learn about running an HOA? And most boards have not had any education in running an HOA, so they don't really know. And I certainly didn't take a class in high school. I know I didn't take a course in college, and I know I didn't take a course in my graduate work. So this is like, you don't really have a resource except for ECHO to give you the directed, I call it unbiased, unfiltered, consultative, and direct information. Whether you're right or you're wrong, we'll tell you. So that's what ECHO does, and we're actually kind of proud of that, and I think most people very much appreciate it. If you have homeowners that need to be educated a little bit on their rights and responsibility, you can have them contact us, and we'll be happy to help them. Vice versa, if board members and what have you have sticky issues that they want to get through, or maybe just some issues, you can talk to us as well. We have a lot of resources available. And I'll explain HOA. We decided a few years ago that we wanted to pull together our university concept, and we do have an ECHO University. These are all the courses that we do. We have over 100 and I think it's about 110 this year classes that we've conducted. So it's a lot. That's a lot of travel. It's a lot of online work. These are also on demand. So education is really at the keystone of what we do at ECHO. We do provide a certificate. If you want to take the 10-course certificate program, you can do it over 3 years. It's a good one to get people that are maybe interested in being board members, to get people more engaged so they understand what their rights and responsibilities are and what they can do to help their association. So I would suggest that you look at that. We have, I think, 53 or 54 people enrolled in the program, and we've had our first graduating class just last year. We have, I mentioned, 100 events, and we have printed material. We actually are going to be coming out with more printed material, at least I hope a lot more printed material. We do periodicals. We have 8 industry insights that we put out, the ECHO Insight, which is an online e-newsletter, and then we have 4 magazines that come out a year quarterly, and that's the ECHO Journal. Those are our periodicals. We do have the statute book, and I believe Recon 360 has some to hand out there. So if you want a statute book, it has all of Davis Sterling in it. I'd rush over there. A limited number I can see, but we do have that as well that we produce. And we have some other things online. I just recently put up a conflict of interest policy example so that you can use that as a resource. The Board Members Club is a peer-to-peer learning experience for board member to board member education, and we have about 307 or so people in the club. We get about 30 to 40 people that meet on a monthly basis, except for December and July, and it's kind of fun because they've gotten to know each other and they talk about things that are important to them, and from their perspective, it's a little different perspective than what you would get if you went to one of the industry experts, like an attorney or another management firm or whatever. So it's a good place to go and ask and get your answers, and nothing's a dumb question in that group. And then Echo is working on a new project. It's going into a beta test right now, and it's called Our Town, an Echo Community. And it's a platform that we've worked on. It's going to be online, but it's a way for us to deliver education to our communities much quicker than we were able to do before. And you get it free as part of your membership. It'll be added into to your onboarding process if you're interested. And there's things that you can do there, including putting governing documents up, putting a calendar on it. There's communities that we can create, project managements that can be put into the thing. You get to pick and choose. You probably talk to your attorney a little bit to make sure you aren't creating any liabilities for yourself, but there are opportunities to help us. And I have Anka that's here today, who's our professional on this one. She's actually, I think she went to MIT, and so she's a very smart person. There she is. Raise your hand, stand up, wave in the corner there. That's Anka. And she's with a company called Allpeep, who's our collaborator on this. And then we have Exonomy too, which is a vertical marketplace group. And this is just a tool that we wanted to get out so that we have a more direct relationship with the communities, and that you can have your HOA members be more engaged. And this is an engagement tool. And so over the years, over the 52 years that we've been in existence, really our whole ethos is that we provide trusting information so that you can trust us. I pick up the phone when you call. I know a lot of you have called me and are a little bit surprised when I actually answer the phone. Connor is here too. He's in the back room. He picks up the phone. Jacqueline, she's up in Oregon now, but she also is very helpful. But we try to answer all the calls. Sometimes it's difficult, but we will work with you and help you try to navigate some of the difficulties and ambiguities that are in the HOA world. So that's who we are. We're really proud to be here to represent you. We are very, very passionate about working with HOA boards and, frankly, working with HOA community homeowners so that we can build better communities in California. This is the way of the future. We're starting to see it happen more and more. All new development, or most new development, is an HOA development. So that's us. That's Echo. We appreciate all that you've done for us. And now I'd like to talk about my awards of appreciation. So I don't see any of my award recipients here, but if you're an award recipient, come on up and stand in line. The first ones these are my volunteer awards, and these are the appreciation awards. And one of the members here, it says in alphabetical order, is Dave Bonfilio. Dave is awesome because Dave is part of the board members club, and he's a moderator. He's really been a leader in that capacity. So we wanted to recognize Dave for his outstanding leadership as a moderator of the Echo board members club. So Dave's right here. Thank you. Just stand somewhere like right here. Thank you, Dave. And then there's Anna Dazan. Anna is with CalPro. She's wonderful, very energetic. If you know Anna, she's extremely energetic and a wonderful contributor to Echo. She was relatively new to the industry a couple of years ago, and I can remember thinking, "Who's this? She's so energetic." So I made sure to tap into that and help as much as I could. She's here because she's helped us to establish the San Pablo Bay Resource Panel, which is going very well. It's in Benicia, so she's doing a great job over there, and for serving on the East Bay Resource Panel. She also helps us at TCAR, so she will help us in Rossmore. So thank you so much for that, and here is your thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to have a little photo op, so Leela, we're going to have you come on up and take the photo. So next on the agenda here is Tira K. Lamar. So Tira is another wonderful contributor and has done very well for Echo and and done a lot of effort for us, so I really appreciate it. And I know, in particular, Leela does as well, because they work closely together. Her award is for supporting HOA education and serving on the leadership teams of the North Bay and Wine Country resource panels. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. And our final recipient, not the least recipient, where is she? Oh, you snuck up behind me. She's eager beaver. So Chris Lucas with Heritage Bank of Commerce also is a recipient today. Chris has done a great job. She served as the chair of the East Bay Resource Panel, and she has continued to support ECHO, I think, very much so, and I deeply appreciate it. HBC, our Heritage Bank of Commerce, is ECHO's bank, and she's now our lead for ECHO, so thank you so much for your support and your help. You bet. And so Leela, you're going to come up and, oh, there you are. Okay, we're going to take just a second here to have a little photo op, and we're good. Scoot on over here so we have a darker background toward me. Left, go left, left. What a great group of people, and we very much appreciate the volunteers, all of our volunteers. We had a legion of volunteers out there helping us set up today, and I definitely appreciate these folks. So can we give them a round of applause too? Thank you to all of our volunteers. You really have made this super special for all of us. And so I have a special recognition today for Paul Collins of Collins Management. Paul appreciated to such a degree what we're doing in the educational world that he has become a benefactor member, and that's a lifetime membership in ECHO. And so he is sponsoring much of our education and was a much needed and a welcome contributor of significant amount of money to ECHO, and we very much appreciate it. It allows us to improve our classes, improve our technology so that we can get it out to everyone in a timely manner, and help us do more things online. I think over 87% or so of the membership says that they prefer to have their education online, which is a big change from about 5 years ago. So it's really been working real well. So I'm going to ask to come to the stage now Paul Collins, our benefactor member recipient now. Thank you. Here's your award.
Wow, I haven't gotten a trophy since high school soccer, so this is great. This will fall. Okay. I just really want to thank ECHO. I don't know what we would do as an HOA management company without the services provided, without the educational services, and the fact, you have your CAIs, you have your CACMs, but ECHO is specifically mission-driven to support board members and homeowners. And we rely heavily on ECHO to train our boards on all manner of things. You all know. This is like preaching to the choir. And as a result, it just makes us a more efficient company. And so supporting ECHO was a no-brainer. It was my honor to do it. And I humbly accept this recognition on behalf of Collins Management and the Collins Management Foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's take a picture with them. Leela? So at this time, I'd like to call Barry Ross to the, or excuse me, this is not Barry Ross, Nathan McGuire to the stage. And Nathan's going to give us an update on legislation and legislative activities and do a little future forecasting with his crystal ball. So Nathan McGuire, here you go.
So 50 minutes, or should I? Okay. Wow, this is so great. I'm so excited to be here. This is my favorite event of the year, so thank you so much for being here. I'm going to talk a little fast because I want to make sure that we have time at the end for questions. I know there's going to be some questions I expect, and I can probably anticipate what some of them are going to be on, because we had really one big issue this year, and the rest turned out to be kind of a ho-hum. But in many ways, it was a historic year in terms of legislation and what I think will be the long-term impact for HOAs. So let's just jump right in, and I'll tell you what we're gonna cover. So we'll talk about just some basic introduction in stats related to this two-year session, and we'll talk about the state's priorities and maybe how that translated this year into the legislation that you'll see and that we'll talk about. And of course, the reason why you're here, to learn about the new laws that actually passed. If you've been following along with our advocacy updates and our legislation updates in the ECHO's periodicals and on the website, you'll see that we've been tracking a bunch of legislation, and not a lot of the legislation that we were tracking made it to the governor's desk, for better or worse. So we will talk about the bills that actually passed, the ones that you actually need to know about, and the ones that you care about. And then we'll talk about some predictions for the future. I always like to do this and kind of see the scorecard, how we're doing, and sort of what you might be thinking about as you're planning for the future. So this was the first year of a new two-year session. So the bills that didn't make it to the governor's desk this year are not necessarily dead, unlike last year. Of course, bills can always be introduced, and so an idea is never dead, even if a bill is dead. So 2025 kicked off, like I said, this two-year session. 29 new legislators were sworn in, so we're getting to know who's new and what their interests are. A record number of women this year, 49%. Democrats still held majorities in both the Senate and in the Assembly. And California's one of 38 state government trifectas. That means that one party holds the governor's seat and both houses in the legislature. There's only 12 that had split government. So in terms of the bills, there's a ton of bills that are introduced. This is why legislators have staffers. They try to read them, they try to see them all, they try to understand and evaluate them, but it's challenging because there are so many bills. Leadership tried to kind of reduce the number of bills that each legislator could introduce, but it honestly didn't have a significant impact. So almost 2,500 bills were introduced by the deadline in February, and of those, 37% reached the governor's desk. He signed 794 bills. That's a lot of law changes, okay? Thankfully, only a handful of those impact HOAs, although I do find it kind of interesting how the HOA world seems to be kind of a favorite topic for certain legislators. So we are busy every single year and only vetoed 123 bills. So the state's priorities, which this year were kind of more front and center in terms of one issue that you're going to see had a huge impact on us. And I think maybe the reason why many of you are here to hear me speak, but we'll hold that conversation for a few minutes. But these were the priorities that the state has indicated that they wanted to work on in this legislative session. So housing and homelessness, public safety, the economy, healthcare, and also climate, schools, government, and belonging. So these are no surprises, right? These are the things that we hear in the news. Not much controversy there. But you will see that in terms of what we're thinking about, most of the bills that impact us would relate to housing or the economy. In particular, we saw some interesting language this year I talked about in a previous presentation for ECHO about the state's interest in what they're calling middle housing or gentle density housing. And these are basically to increase the housing supply where it's kind of the type of density, the type of housing that's between a single family home in a suburban development and a high-rise condominium building. So ADUs and JADUs and triplexes and fourplexes and small apartment buildings and the like. So the state is doing a lot to try to emphasize and push policy that would help to increase that kind of housing stock. So let's talk about assembly bills first. And the first bill that we're going to talk about, not a significant impact, but just to kind of let you know that the state is thinking about wildfire. I don't think we've seen anything that is significantly impactful in terms of wildfire in legislation. I expect that to continue. They did pass a bill, AB 1, which requires the Department of Insurance every 5 years to consider adding hardening measures to its regulations. That's not a big deal. Consult with various agencies. They're doing that already. But what I do like about this bill is that it gives it requires the Department of Insurance to engage in a public participation process to allow groups like groups that are concerned about HOA issues and the impact of insurance on our HOA communities to have more of a seat at the table. So hopefully that will help to have us to have more of a voice, because I can tell you that the last couple years, the Department of Insurance kind of is understanding how the wildfire issues are affecting our insurance policies and rates and cost of living. But up until then, they really had no idea. They didn't really understand the difference, especially between condominium master policy that covers the fire and casualty for the structures essentially in an entire condominium community versus the types of fire that just covers an individual homeowner structure. So hopefully this will help a little bit, but certainly not going to be an immediate impact. Okay, now I'm going to take a breath here. We're going to talk about Assembly Bill 130, and I'm going to tell you about kind of the story, the origin of this bill. So AB 130 was a budget trailer bill. What's a budget trailer bill? What the heck does that mean? A budget trailer bill is basically legislation that the legislature puts together to try to implement the state's budget that was just adopted. So it should implement the state's policies and make sure that the budget can actually work. And so there's lots of things in this bill. It's kind of a kitchen sink bill. The bill is something like, actually, I'm going to have to look at my note here. 158 pages. What happened is in the evening on June 27th, last-minute amendments from a bill called Senate Bill 681, which was being sponsored by Senator Wahab, it had issues related to HOA fines. And in that bill, it included a $100 cap and some other things that you now see on the screen in AB 130. And there were productive conversations going on with Senator Wahab, and she had in fact indicated that there would be significant changes. Remember, this is in June, and the session doesn't really wrap up until October, and so we understood that there was sort of plenty of time to work on this, and the bill was going through committee, and expected significant changes. That's why everyone was shocked when the language appeared on June 27th in AB 130 in the mass of 158 pages, and there was very little time for public input. There was no time for the language to be considered in committees. It basically happened under the cover of night in the darkness. And on just 3 days later, on June 29th, the bill was voted on. And because it was part of the budget trailer bill, it was an urgency measure that took effect immediately. So on July 1st, everyone was scrambling, and you were probably getting updates from law firms and certainly ECHO. We were putting out information because this was a surprise, frankly, to everyone. And for someone who's been following legislation, especially related to HOAs for a long time, this was a huge surprise to me, and frankly a huge disappointment in terms of how I think the political process should work. So nevertheless, here we are, and you want to know, what does AB 130 say? The first thing, and maybe the most impactful that everyone is talking about, of course, is the limit or cap on fines of $100. So what does this mean? The statute says per violation. And the follow-up question, of course, is what is a violation? What is per violation? We'll talk about that in a minute. There is an exception to the $100 cap on fines if the violation may result in an adverse health or safety impact on the common area or another association member's property. Again, we're going to have some questions we'll talk about in terms of what the heck does that mean. The board has to make a written finding determining that the violation meets this health or safety exception in a meeting open to all members. Again, we're going to have some questions about how that's done. The bill also allows a member to cure the violation or to provide a financial commitment to cure the violation prior to the hearing. We'll talk about what that means. And if they successfully cure the violation prior to the hearing, then no disciplinary action can be taken as a result of that violation. And for some crazy reason, just to sort of add salt to the wound, they changed the notice period for the decision, for the notice of the disciplinary decision, from 15 days to 14. As if one day was going to make some kind of significant difference, but to you, it makes a big difference because your documents all said 15 and now they're not consistent. So even if you could somehow manage to comply with all of these other requirements without, looking at too carefully at your governing documents, because these apply regardless of what your governing documents say, right? The statute will override. But now they're just inconsistent. They're just out of line. And something so simple as 15 versus 14, okay, give me a break. You can probably tell I'm not a huge fan of AB 130, in part because of this. There are so many open questions, okay? So there's an idea there in terms of whether or not fines are good practice or not, and there's a debate there. I mean, I think that fines are an imperfect tool, but certainly better than litigation, and I think the legislature tends to understand that because they've been pushing lots of things to try to avoid HOAs and boards getting involved in litigation. I think this is an area where the legislature is going to see this backfire. So some open questions. What is a health or safety exception? The language that I hate from this bill is that it says that may result in an adverse health or safety impact on the common area or another association member's property. So one interpretation, the conservative interpretation of this language, is that the behavior that gives rise to the violation will only meet the exception if the impact would be to the physical property, right? So the example that I use is someone driving recklessly throughout the community, 100 miles an hour, and maybe we could say that this is a violation that meets the health or safety exception because they might run over a stop sign, but not a kid. If they run over a kid, it's $100, right? So I don't think that makes much sense. I think that's an absurd result and certainly poor drafting, but it is what we're dealing with. Talk to your counsel because I'm hearing lots of different interpretations about this, and I don't want to be the one to give you the legal advice on these issues. So one of the other questions is, how do we determine the health or safety exception? Because as you know, hearings are held in executive session. And so now there's this process that some determination related to what the fine amount will ultimately be needs to be made in an open session. So how are we going to do that? There's an extra process here. And I think that there's a couple ways that we've talked about doing this. One is to do it categorically. So you can say, you can pass talk to your counsel, but I think that one possibility would be to adopt a resolution which specifies the types of violations that would meet the health or safety exception that the board could use to determine in the disciplinary hearing that happens after the fact that, yes, this conduct did meet the exception that we've previously determined exists. The other way to do it is on a case-by-case basis. This becomes kind of challenging logistically in terms of the timing because the notice has to be given in 14 days, right? But what some associations are doing are something like having the disciplinary hearings on the same day prior to a board meeting or the day before a board meeting or something like that. And so then it can be determined at the next open board meeting. I would caution you to be careful about what to say in that context when you're determining that, because there's a reason why we tend to do disciplinary hearings in executive session. It's because we're trying to kind of keep things private and not necessarily embarrass the member and air everybody's dirty laundry. And so you might implement a process similar to what we do with certain collection issues where we talk about the matter using non-identifying information to the homeowner. Another question, of course, is how do we cure and what can be cured? Can some bad behavior like disrupting the meeting and then tossing a chair through the window, can that be cured? And how would that be cured? I think probably not. Would an apology suffice? That doesn't undo the action. What about something that is sort of an ongoing violation, like someone parks their RV on their front grass and they get a hearing notice, and they show up on the day of the hearing, and they have a picture that shows that the RV has been moved. Is that cured? Probably, but what happens if they park the RV back the day after the hearing? And they actually decide they're really smart, they're gonna park the RV on their grass for 29 days out of the month, but on the date of the hearing, they're gonna move it. And so, as you can see, there are problems with how this language is written and a lot of open questions. In my book, this is one example where boards really need to look at their policies related to enforcement, revamp the policies, rewrite the policies, define what a violation is, define what constitutes cure, and probably, by the way, that should be the board's determination and not sort of the owner just saying, I cured, here's my letter, and I don't have to show up at the hearing. That should be part of the process that the board gets to decide. Of course, determining the health or safety exception and how that's going to work. What about continuous violations? What about the type of violation that happens? Parking's the best example because it's easy to describe. But you have a situation where someone parks their broken down car, right, or their broken down RV, and it's there all the time. Now, if they don't move it, is that just a $100 violation? What if it's not broken down and they move it, every day? Now, because they moved it on Monday and brought it back on Tuesday, is that a new violation? So I think that it's important to define in your governing documents what is a violation. I think there's a good argument, and many of my clients have been taking the position that a violation can be defined as the keeping of something which is in violation of the documents as a distinct violation. So the parking of the broken down vehicle is a violation, but so is the keeping it. So that would it be reasonable to say every day that the violation is kept, is maintained, is not rectified, is a violation? Talk to your legal counsel, but I think that's a fair argument. So what is the result going to be of this? Unfortunately, I think it's going to be more litigation, more cost to associations, and by the way, to the violating homeowners themselves, because they are now going to be getting the attorney's letter much more quickly. And I've never been, I've always been sort of hesitant about charging attorney's fees to homeowners, because honestly, judges are the ones who like to do that, as award attorney's fees to the prevailing party. But it may be allowed where boards can impose a remedial assessment against the owner, which would include costs of enforcement, including attorney's fees. So those, I think, are going to be looked at more carefully and become more common. More IDR, that's not a bad thing, but that will be a result. And will there be more opportunities for boards to go to small claims to try to collect on this? So is this the end of the world? I think that it's What is an IDR? IDR is internal dispute resolution. So that's where the member can ask for to meet and confer with the board. And importantly, if a member asks for IDR, then the association under Davis-Sterling is required to agree and to accept. Okay, so is this the end of the world? No. But it's going to require some effort. It's going to require some interpretation. I think we're going to get some case law on this, and we'll see what happens. But I think the ambiguity is, for me, the toughest part. Okay, so I want to make sure that we save time for questions and predictions. So we're going to move on to another Assembly bill. This is Assembly Bill 1154 related to ADUs and JADUs. This slightly amends the government code requirements related in particular to JADUs, and it eliminates an owner occupancy requirement for the main residence for if a JADU is constructed, as long as the bathroom is separate from the main residence. That's not the case with every JADU. Sorry if I forgot to define ADU and JADU. That's an accessory dwelling unit and a junior accessory dwelling unit. Most of you may know them as like in-law units or the like. And for better or worse, ADUs and JADUs have become a really important part of the association's plan to address the affordable housing crisis and to try to increase the housing stock. And it also requires JADU rentals to be longer than 30 days, so no short-term rentals. So if you have owners in your communities that have JADUs, you shouldn't be seeing them showing up on Vrbo and Airbnb. By the way, did y'all know it was Vrbo, not VRBO? I learned that recently. So let's talk about some Senate bills, and we'll jump into SB 410. This is for condos. Basically, this bill makes the SB 326 balcony inspection reports part of the association records that members are entitled to request under Davis-Sterling. It requires that the report have certain information on a cover page, basic information, including the date of inspection, the number of units, how the inspection was done, and the certification of the inspector. And also it now makes this report part of the disclosures that the HOA must provide upon request in escrow for in the context of the sale of a unit. Okay, let's talk about SB 547. This is I think a very well-intentioned bill, and I'm crossing my fingers that it will have a positive impact. It provides a one-year moratorium on cancellations and non-renewals in zip codes that are affected by or in a declared state of emergency due to wildfire. So basically, this is going to prevent the wave of cancellations and non-renewals that we saw starting happening several years ago. Sounds like good news. Hopefully it is. And it applies importantly to commercial properties, including, there's a kind of a list, but the language ultimately includes homeowners associations and condominium associations. So this directly applies. Unlike a few years ago when we had cancellations and everybody said, wait, isn't there a moratorium? And the insurance companies clapped back and rightly said the moratorium applies only to residential insurance policies, not to commercial master policies like the ones that condominium associations have, which covers the structure of their buildings for wildfire. So why am I concerned about this bill? Only because we're in a fragile place with respect to the insurance industry, and we're always concerned that more carriers are going to leave the market in California, as some have already done. Many are on the fence. And so we're trying to find this balance between pushing on the insurance carriers to do better, to provide more, to charge less, but we always have to remember they don't have to be here, as we've seen. They're welcome to tie their shoes and run across and do business elsewhere. Okay, so SB 625, this makes any CC&R provision void and unenforceable if it would block or severely limit the substantially similar reconstruction of a residential structure damaged in a disaster. So this bill was the result of the Palisades fire. It was originally going to kind of apply in more of a limited geographic area. And but it basically means that if your community is impacted by wildfire and people are trying to rebuild, we're going to have to act quickly and diligently to get them through the approval process. It requires that HOAs approve or deny applications within specific time periods. So for example, the initial response is due within 30 days. And basically you can't deny if they want to rebuild, which I'm not thinking we would, but okay. SB 770 is an electric vehicle charging station bill, and basically what happened with this bill is some constituents went to their legislator and they said, hey, we want to install electric vehicle charging stations, but Davis Sterling says that in order to do so, the HOA can ask us to provide a certificate of insurance, naming the association as an additional insured, because we want to make sure, of course, that there is insurance in case something goes wrong related to the construction or maintenance or use of an electric vehicle charging station, and that the association isn't on the hook because they've agreed to let someone do that. But they said the problem is we're having trouble getting that actual certificate. And I can tell you that the energy lobby, the green, whether it's solar or electric vehicles, they have a lot of influence. And so we've seen a lot of those bills going through. And basically this one says you can no longer require that certificate of insurance to be given. We pushed back against this bill. I think that this is probably mostly a problem that didn't need this kind of solution, because what we found when we started asking around and asking companies is that a lot of these owners that were apparently not able to get these certificates were just kind of not asking the right questions, or the insurance companies didn't know how to do it, or that they could do it. So maybe in some cases the owners were asking for a rider instead of a certificate of insurance or things like that. And so, or there may be a few companies that weren't doing it, but when we called around, most companies said, yeah, not a problem, this is doable. So, but in any case, you can still ask for it, but it's no longer can be a requirement. Okay, so now we get to pull out my crystal ball and talk about some predictions, and looks like we'll have time for questions. So here were my predictions back in 2020 when I did this. I think I did a pretty good job. We've seen most of these things happening. Virtual board meetings, yes, there was legislation on this. SB 323 cleanup, not so much. Lot splits in zoning, yes, we were dealing with SB 9 and SB 10, and that's continued to be a topic of conversation. Affordable housing and ADUs, absolutely. That's been a constant for the last 8 or 9 years or more. Electronic notice and voting, yes, thank you, that happened. And there was a kind of an odd issue with how assessment liens are incorporated. I thought we'd see some changes there. It hasn't happened yet, so we will see. But basically what that is an association may need to record a new lien in order to incorporate ongoing assessments. So if you recorded a lien in 2020, don't assume that it includes the amounts that have become due since then. Okay, so for 2026 and beyond, I predicted this last year. It did not happen. Was the Open Meeting Act email discussion issue, which was determined by the LNSU case. Basically, the court said, using a very conservative interpretation of the Open Meeting Act, which is part of the Davis-Sterling Act, that board members can email, and that didn't constitute a violation of the Open Meeting Act because they weren't in the same time, place, location to discuss. So I think that there's been lots of conversation about whether or not that should be the case or not. I hope that we'll see more legislation about wildfire insurance and hardening. It's still a significant issue that we're facing in terms of overall affordability and associations seeing skyrocketing premiums, and it's affecting everyone across the boards. Lot splits in zoning and affordable housing, I think, will continue to be a topic of conversation. I'm frankly starting to run out of things that they could do related to ADUs. So we'll see, because there's been legislation literally every single year on ADUs, and the legislature is continuing to try to streamline the building process and permitting process and enforcement process just to get things going again. And frankly, I'm surprised that we haven't seen more legislation related to structural integrity. I thought there would be more of a fallout nationwide after the Surfside collapse in Florida, and that we'd see more legislation in addition to SB 326 on balcony inspections, but more related to the structure of condominium buildings and the reserves for associations, as well as maybe even a mandated amount of reserves. As you may know, California is kind of a disclosure state, so we tell everybody how the reserves are doing, but boards are obligated to reserve and to maintain their project, but there's no minimum amount of reserves that is required. So some associations are well funded and some are very poorly funded. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some legislation still to come on that, but for now the legislature seems to be distracted. And then finally, do I think that we'll see AB 130 enforcement cleanup legislation? And sadly, I think the answer is probably no. I hope that it will be the case, but I think that it may not be the case from what I'm hearing in the Capitol. You would think that because there has been such a widespread backlash to AB 130, that the legislators who were involved, like Senator Wahab, in terms of formulating it and putting it into print, would feel some pressure and obligation to clean it up and to make changes. But from what I'm seeing, from what I'm hearing, that doesn't look like that will be the case. And so it may be that it's going to take some time until there's additional appellate decisions that weigh in to determine some of the ambiguities, and if those don't go the way that the legislature likes, then maybe they'll step in, or there's just so much litigation and cost and everything in general that it will turn into a mess, a big enough mess that the legislature will feel compelled to clean it up. So with that is the end of my portion of the presentation. All right, so we've got time for questions. So I saw here a question.
Can you remind everybody about the law that passed early in 25 about HOA's responsibility to utilities?
Yeah, so the question was, can I remind you about a bill that passed previously? It was SB 900, which requires associations to maintain, to diligently fix utilities where the interruption occurred from within the common area. So we could spend a lot of time talking about that. I know especially for condominium projects that can tend to be a big deal. Of course, the other big one that a lot of associations are dealing with now, and because the implementation is coming up, is the turf bill. So will we see changes in terms of how that works? I think we're waiting on regulations. We're waiting on word from water departments and things like that. And I don't know if there's much of an appetite for legislation, but certainly not an effort or a push that I've seen or heard about that would overturn that functional turf bill. So.
We're only going to be able to take a couple of questions. Okay. So Leah has someone here.
Okay. Did I understand correctly that if the board wants to impose a violation, we have to do it in an open board session?
Yeah, so the issue that needs to be determined in the open session is whether or not a violation meets the health or safety exception, which would allow the violation to exceed the $100 cap. So, right, fines are capped across the board at $100 per violation unless the board determines in an open meeting that the violation may present an adverse health or safety impact to the common area or to another member's property, in which case the amount can exceed $100 as specified in the association's fine policy or fine schedule.
Okay. We got one here, and we have about 5 minutes. Okay.
Hi. Regarding the EV charging station, I thought I heard you say that the HOA could request the certificate of insurance but not require it?
Yeah, so this is what SB 770 does. Is it says the association can no longer require, as a condition of approval for an electronic vehicle charging station, the insurance. No. The association cannot require it as a condition of approval. Talk to me after if I'm not making sense.
I'm wondering whether, the imposition of a 25% requirement for rentals, which affects us a lot more than ADUs. I think that was 3 years ago, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
Has there been any interpretation, implementation that came out?
So you're talking.
Like how do you decide 25% of all of Rossmore, 25% of mutual, and do you have to redo the CC&Rs, I assume?
Yeah, so AB 3182, which passed a few years back, it related to rental restrictions. It basically sort of regulates what kind of restrictions HOAs can impose. One of the allowable types of restrictions is an overall cap per association of 25%. So you can't do a more stringent cap than 25%. And you are required to, there is a process for amending your governing documents in order to strictly comply with and conform to those requirements. Sorry, I'm not, do you want to talk to me after?
Okay. We had a 1-year limit on ownership. During the time of your ownership, you could only rent it for a year. And I'm curious how that's going to affect.
Yeah, that's no longer permitted.
Okay. Do you have someone?
Just a quick question about the balcony inspections. Is there any verbiage in there that eliminates us from the inspection if the homeowner puts it on as an addition? That's not part of the natural.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too far into the weeds on SB 326, but it applies only to in limited circumstances. So please don't take my reference to a balcony inspection requirement to mean that it applies to all balconies across the boards. It applies in some very limited circumstances where the HOA is required to maintain the structure of the balconies essentially and other elevated structures in a condominium project.
Hi. Thanks for being here, first of all. A couple of questions. One regarding the fire hardening laws. I'm a real estate broker, and we're finding confusion with that the law seems to put the responsibility on compliance on the owner, when in most instances the fire hardening work is going to be in common area. So I'm wondering if you see any predictions for that being cleaned up. And then secondly, SB 236, the balcony.
326.
326 seems to exempt co-ops from the law. Here in Rossmore, we have 3 associations with over 3,000 units that mostly have balconies, and I'm wondering if you see that being cleaned up.
Yeah, no, I've seen no indication that there will be any more legislation related to 326. I mean, certainly communities, like Rossmore, I don't represent Rossmore, so talk to your legal counsel, but have the ability to talk to their legislators about specific impacts that they may have. And based on your first question, can you? Fire hardening. Yeah, I don't think that I'm not seeing any indication that the Department of Insurance is paying that close of attention to the distinction between common area and individual owner separate interest properties. Like I said a few years ago, they didn't even know the difference between a condominium master policy that that associations have to cover the structure versus the individual unit owners' policies, and they're saying, oh no, we just got Allstate to come back into California, and we're telling them no, they're not when it comes to condominium policies. When it comes to condominium policies, they're not writing policies. We're getting canceled. We're getting non-renewed. We're getting rates that are skyrocketing. So they're getting better. They're getting more up to speed, and they've opened the door, and there are people at the table that are saying the right things. But I'm not sure that it's going to have a massive impact as we go forward. It's unfortunately, a lot of it is political.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Nathan. We appreciate it. You can also read more from Nathan. He's our legal editor and legislative editor for both the publication Insight and for the journal, the Echo Journal. He writes a column in each one of those and updates us on legislative matters throughout the session. So thank you so much to him for his volunteerism and helping to support Echo. At this time, we're going to look a little further out there than just the little crystal ball the next year and the year after. We're going to start talking about artificial intelligence and what it means to HOAs, how that can impact you, how it can save you some money, how it may be a bit threatening, but the more you know about it, the better off you'll be. And so I've asked Barry Ross to give us a presentation today with Ross and Ross International. Come on up, Barry. We really appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
Thank you much. Can I pop this on here? And is it on? Are you on? Yep. Great. Make sure you stay close to the black background. Yes. Thanks. And let's see. Perfect. Okay. What did I just turn off? Okay, lost signal. Okay, any suggestions? This is actually designed for the technology person. Okay, so let's get that back, get that back. Come on, there we go. Great. So let's try this again. Dave, thank you very much. Dave, thank you very much for the introduction. And as he had mentioned, we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about AI and how AI can potentially help the boards and the communities themselves. You've either been fortunate or not fortunate to get someone that absolutely lives and breathes this technology, not only from our business, but also for personal hobby. So I spend an awful lot of time delving into this and trying to learn not only AI, but some of the future things like robots coming next year, which we won't go into for this session. So the main thing today is that AI still runs into a little bit of hot and cold. People either hate it, they're scared of it, or they love it. And what I hope to do today is to convince you that there's actually a lot of really good opportunities to help you in your role as a board member, as well as if you own your own business, and also that there are some practical things you could do right away. And they're going into 2026, this is a great time of year to do this, is to take a look at how can you work together in 2026 to start taking advantage of this. So let me just hope I can move on. And okay. So when I've been putting this together, actually the last couple of months I've been doing research. So I've been looking at some of the options, the alternatives, how it could be used, in addition to the other industries that we work with. And one of the parts of my research was I was calling various HOAs, asking some questions. And I got a hold of a president of an HOA with about 45 units in the Midwest, who I happen to know. He's the president of the association. And I was calling to get feedback, going, what's really going on in the different boards that are out there? So I called up and said, hey, Bruce, you know, I understand you're using this. Have you been working with AI at all? Or do you know anything about it? And he goes, oh, Barry, it's so great you called. He goes, I'm starting to come up to speed on this. I'm learning it slowly. He goes, I just had a great success using this. So I said, okay, perfect. Tell me, what are you doing? So he said, I've been trying to learn ChatGPT. And by learning ChatGPT, he was playing around with different things he could do with emails and notes and, you know, various presentations and research. And he said, the other day I got a proposal or a request that the sewers were starting to clog up and we need to do something about it. So he went to the property manager, they sent out their plumber, and they got a proposal to clean them out and about $5,000, $7,000 to do this. So he said, great. So he was looking at it at the same time using ChatGPT, and he said, oh, what'll happen if I take that proposal and feed it into my ChatGPT and say, is this a good proposal? Are there any other ways of doing this? Is there anything that I should know about before we go ahead with this? Because he's not an expert in plumbing. So it came back and said, oh, yeah, this is a really good idea. This is something that needs to be done. However, he goes, you live in a very old complex. He put all this in. And he goes, by using this particular technique for cleaning out your sewers, it's a good chance sewer pipes that you currently have are fragile because they're 50 years old. And if you push them too hard, they're going to break. And he goes, so that $5,000 or $7,000 project could end up turning into a $70,000 project. And he did at the time, ChatGPT didn't say that, but it said it could get very expensive. So he went back to the property manager and he went back to the plumber, and they asked the questions, which is what you should be doing with things like this, with AI, is going, well, is this like real? Is this make believe? You know, is this true? And the plumber said, well, it's possible it could be doing that, and I didn't think it was really worth looking at. So he said, well, I want another opinion. So he asked ChatGPT who are the other top plumbers for HOAs around, and it came up with a list. So he gave it back to the property manager and said, pick one, tell me who should I talk to. So they came back out, they did another assessment, and the other plumber was actually very experienced in their area, and came back and said, actually, ChatGPT was right. You have pipes that around the neighborhood have broken from doing this technique, and as a result, you could be looking at a $70,000 bill on top of the $5,000 bill we just gave you. And he said, what? He goes, why didn't the first person tell me about this? They go, well, he doesn't know why. He goes, but I'm giving you my assessment. There are other alternatives that may not be as good or effective, but they won't break your pipes. And then the other thing they recommended was educating your tenants, homeowners, on making sure that that made sense to, not put stuff in the garbage disposal that you really shouldn't. So the bottom line on this story was they ended up using the other technique. It cleaned out the sewers, they educated their people, and they eliminated a potential $70,000 extra fee. And that's not that unusual in HOAs. We always have these surprises that happen to us, and it kind of blows up the budget a bit. But the less of them are better. So my first question for you, with a show of hands, so how many of you would love to have a $70,000 savings next month from a project that you may be planning of unexpected expense? Little show of hands. Then the next question is, have any of you ever had surprises like this, where you went in for a few $1,000s and ended up with a very large follow-up? Little show of hands. You look around the room, almost a high percentage of us. So the key thing with this is that it demonstrates, with a little bit of knowledge of starting to learn AI, you have a potential to really do some very good things for the association. So a basic question that I thought I would get kind of a leveling set is, again, can I see a show of hands? How many of you at least played with AI or touched it a little bit? Show of hands, a little higher? Okay, a very, very good percentage compared to, I started doing a lot of training in January, about 9 months ago, and most of the room hadn't ever dealt with it. Within 9 months, we've seen a big increase in people that are at least starting to use it, which is terrific, and it really does make a difference in terms of where we go from here. So let's go next. Okay, I am going to purposely skip that slide that I just went over and go to this one. So the slide that I went over was a kind of a cheat sheet to help you go through all of the materials that you might want to use AI for. And I'm happy to go back to that during question and answer if anybody's interested. But it's a cheat sheet I wanted to provide to get you started on how to get started with AI, how to actually use it. So in doing the presentation, the other thing I found was David warned me that I need to be very prompt in terms of my presentation and not go over. And I have a challenge that there's so much information that I'd like to share, it sometimes can push me longer than my time limits. So for this presentation, what I did is I took advantage of another AI tool for AI video creation. And what I did to help give you the information in a reasonable amount of time is I created, I think it's 4 different videos with my business partner and wife, Alana. And what we did is put together some of these 60-second videos to do an awful lot of the information sharing that normally would take a lot longer. So bear with me. This is the scariest part of a presentation, is hoping your videos work when you hit the button. So here we go. Let's see how this works.
Running an HOA is tough work, right? Well, what if AI could actually make it easier?
Are you just drowning in emails and requests? Yeah, most volunteer boards are. It's a lot.
So let's look at 2 AI tools that can seriously help you get your time back. Okay, first up, generative AI. Think of it as your own personal content creation machine. It can draft newsletters and meeting summaries in seconds. That saves your board so much time.
It also writes up maintenance notices and reminders. This keeps your communication super clear and consistent.
All right, now for AI agents. These aren't about creating stuff. They're about doing stuff. An AI agent can handle resident questions 24/7. That means instant answers for homeowners anytime. It'll automatically send maintenance requests to the right vendor, which really speeds up repairs. It also tracks important tasks and sends follow-ups, so nothing ever falls through the cracks.
So the main difference, generative AI creates content. AI agents perform actions. Simple as that.
When you put these two tools together, you're really looking at the future of managing your community.
So just think, what could your community do with an AI assistant on the team?
And come on. Didn't quite do what I wanted. So the purpose of showing this today was that to kind of give you a little bit of a prompt. In going into 2026, there are going to be two types of AI people talk to you about. One of them is going to be generative AI, which is the ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, Microsoft, Grok. There's a bunch of them out there. And that very often people are using to help them write, help them edit emails, help them create website pages, and also do the analysis like Bruce did when we first started talking. So that's one. The other one, you're going to see more in the applications that your partners are providing you, all the people around this room, will eventually be having AI agents that actually implement the AI in complete tasks to automate an awful lot of the functions that you currently do paperwork for. So it's a big challenge, and today I'm going to go through some of these, and I'm going to give you examples of how both of these can be used in your business. And then we'll have time for question and answer. Okay. So the next step I wanted to do is spend a little bit of time on 3 examples of AI solutions that could be used in homeowner associations. And again, for each one of these is a little bit of a short video to kind of help us go through it. The first example is one of my pet projects when I was working on the security committee in our own homeowners association. My wife and I have been living in a condo association for a couple of decades now, and I've been on the technology, security, et cetera. And video came up about 7 years ago. So I was volunteering to go do some of that research, since we do that as part of our business, pulled all this information together, we worked on it together, and we came up with some great proposals for video. And we made the proposals, and we made the proposals, and we made the proposals over several years. And each time, 7 years ago, we were told, we don't really have a crime problem, it's really expensive to do this, and no one wants cameras in the public to be able to spy on us. Privacy. And a few years ago, that was a big issue with video. Now it's pretty much every place with all the cameras. Now you have this video capability that we made the last proposal, and all of a sudden we ended up approving it and spending the tens of thousands of dollars to put cameras all over our complex. 5 buildings, 250 units, pool house, clubhouse, pools, RV lots. It's quite a bit of land that we cover. And what we did is put in what was standard back then, which is you set up the cameras, you turn on the video, you have a company that records it all and keeps it secure. That was it. AI has changed all that. So we have a short video to talk about that. So here it goes.
Let's talk about taking your HOA security from just recording to actually protecting. So think about your security system right now. Is it just a recording device, or is it truly protecting you? See, old systems just react after something happens, but proactive AI helps stop it before it starts. And this isn't about adding more cameras. It's about getting more answers right when you need them. Imagine having eyes on every single camera, 24/7. That's what AI does, constantly monitoring everything. So what does that look like in the real world? Here are 4 super common examples. The system can flag someone loitering in the garage way before they can cause any trouble. Or how about this? It catches cars tailgating through the gate, a huge security blind spot. It even alerts you to packages that have been left out for too long. This really helps cut down on theft. And it can spot unauthorized access attempts, stopping a problem right at the door. What you get is smarter security. That means way less risk for the HOA and a lot less stress. So maybe it's time to upgrade, to move from just recording problems to actually preventing them.
So that last piece isn't popping up. So on this particular video technology, when you apply AI to it, what you end up having is the capability to not wait to have something done, but you actually have a quick response. And I'll give you a good example. We have the old recording videos that video talked about. So when there's a break-in of some sort, and car break-ins definitely increased when they finally got this thing approved. So if there's a break-in, the next morning someone finds out their car's been broken into, they call, property management, management calls the video company goes and tries to find the video for that time period, hoping they can figure it out in a 12-hour period. They make a clip of it, they send it to the property management or the board, depending on your procedure, and then off to the police so that they can do something about it. So that's a very long period of time. It's not instant, it's possibly hours, days, and maybe even a week. So what AI does, if you have someone that's screwing around in a parking lot at 3 in the morning and it looks not normal for your property, it will take that, AI will see it, realize it's not normal, capture it, and send email, text, or whoever to the appropriate person. And they will get not only a notice right when it happened, so you know when to look, but it'll also give you a clip, depending on your software. So what happens is you end up having an immediate response, and depending on whether it's a minor issue or a major issue, you could have an escalation of it that you couldn't have before. So a very good benefit of having AI tied into video security. The second area is operations, and I understand after lunch we're going to have a couple of speakers that are going to be talking about proactive solving for problems versus reactive expenses like that sewer bill could have happened by not being able to take advantage of understanding what's going on. So let's pop in another video, and this is going to give you a couple of examples of how AI can be used in proactively helping to reduce your costs with operations by catching problems before they happen.
Okay, let's talk about a smarter way to manage your community's operations. Sound familiar? HOA boards everywhere deal with surprise repairs that just wreck the budget. So what if you could stop putting out fires and actually prevent them from starting? Let's look at 3 ways AI can make a huge financial difference for you. First, let's talk maintenance. Right now, you probably just wait for something expensive to break. But with AI, sensors can actually predict a failure before it happens. No more emergencies. Okay, next up, utility bills. You're probably paying to heat and cool empty rooms, right? Well, AI can automatically adjust the climate based on weather, saving a ton of money. And finally, trash. You're likely paying for pickups on a fixed schedule, full or not. With smart bins, they signal when they're full, so you only pay when you need to. So, being proactive protects your budget and your community. The real question is, are you ready?
So again, with this type of technology, I think the key thing that you ought to think about is as the AI permeates into the various solution providers, the equipment, et cetera, what you're going to see in more and more equipment is going to have sensors built in. And AI technology can make use of those sensors and use history data and be able to solve problems before they break, whether it's a furnace, air conditioning, the pool pump before the 4th of July weekend. We have, in our complex, we have gates to the parking areas. Those gates have broken many times and they're old, so the parts to get them could take a couple of days, so they just leave the doors open. So not an ideal scenario. Using AI, they can predict based on the type of equipment and the age and also what's happening in your particular area and be able to help you pre-fix things that may be going wrong in the future. And we've had that same problem with elevators at this point. For those of you I don't know how much people pay attention to this, but I do. The airline industry for years, one of the reasons we have as much safety as we've had, excluding what's been going on locally, recently, the jet engine companies have been putting thousands of sensors into every jet engine for years, for a decade now. And they're getting better and better. But one of the reasons people don't get worried when you're flying from San Francisco, say, to Japan and you're in the middle of the ocean and having a jet engine go out is because long before the jet engine will ever go out, all these sensors are giving feedback to Boeing or Rolls-Royce, you know, in England that provides a lot of the jet engines. They're basically collecting this millions of hours of history. And they know if a part is going to wear out or there are a bunch of symptoms that says, this plane ain't taking off until we fix this jet engine. And that happens today behind the scene. We don't see it. For the HOAs, for all the equipment and all the infrastructure that you have to put in for many of these complexes, having something like this is going to have a continuing advantage of lowering your costs of operations by fixing things before they break. Okay, the last example I wanted to use is actually one of my favorites, and I'm dying for this in our complex. And that is setting up AI smart communication agents to deal with and communicate with your community. So there's lots of software in the enterprise now that this has been going on for the last year or so with AI. There are some companies for the homeowners association that has this, that again is a service you can get. So you basically take your emails, your phone calls, your texts, and all of those get combined and managed by an AI bot that speaks perfect English and knows everything about your complex instantly. So at any point, if you get somebody on the weekend that's trying to close a deal on Monday and they need a copy of the CC&Rs, 24 hours, 7 days a week, they can call, text, or email saying, I need this. It has the person registered so that they basically get approved. And then they get a chance to get their CC&Rs texted or emailed to them instantly. So instead of worrying about it all the weekend, they can have it done on Saturday night at 1 in the morning when they got home from partying and they said, oh, I need to get this to my real estate person. So this is really pretty exciting stuff. And again, have another short video. And this video is a little different. We put together, this is AI-generated video. The person speaking is an example of the type of quality you're getting in these AI bots. So this is actually not a real person, and this is the type of example of what you can do with these systems today. If it plays.
Here's an example of how you can benefit from upgrading to AI resident communications. Vista Oaks HOA was drowning in homeowner calls, texts, and emails. So they implemented a new AI smart assistant. In 90 days, 1,800 plus questions were answered. 92% were auto-resolved, and each board member saved 5+ hours per month. And residents rated the new AI service 88% in overall satisfaction. Now, the board focuses on big decisions and less on administrative work. AI for smarter HOA management.
Thank you for your time.
Isn't that amazing? Blows my mind. The next step, just for your information, which doesn't have to do with this presentation, is you now have the ability to create an AI avatar of yourself. So that I'm planning on doing that for me later, I guess beginning of next year, time-wise. So you may see me next time being completely virtual in these videos made up by AI. It's kind of weird because it takes my voice as well as my image and does the same thing like that. It's kind of fun. Okay, here's another case study example. And again, by the way, I pulled a couple of out to give you some relative reactions to this, but these companies that provide the service, this is normal. This is incredible how much this is really making a difference. And then the other thing I'll add is that for all of us, actually I'll ask a question. So how many of you have had horrible experiences with those stupid little bots on the bottom right-hand side of a website that says, oh, I'll help you, and they never do? Can I see a show of hands? Yeah, I hate those. This is not your father's AI bot from 10 years ago. This is really pretty impressive technology that is now very well received. And if you look at the survey results, this was, again, a case study. Let me get this right. So it was a before and after. the before of time frame to get answers, 3 to 5 days. I don't know about you, but that's not unusual in our association, and some of them could go for months not getting resolved and kind of questioning what happens. After implementing these bots, they were able to do it within an hour, which is pretty incredible. The residential satisfaction is the other point that I wanted to make on this, is 65% overall before anything happened is pretty good for, association. It's okay. It's not the best in the industry. I think Amazon probably would have better responses. But after this HOA implemented their AI bot, it jumped to 92% of satisfaction. I don't know about you, but actually even a guy like me that loves this stuff and believes in it, understand the limitations of technology, 92% is amazing. You basically celebrate, have a glass of champagne and party if your board is able to provide that kind of services and those responses to your community. You're going to be well appreciated. But the key on this is that the amount of time that's saved for the board members, it saves time for your property management company, and it creates this tremendous positive experience dealing with the association and the community. It's pretty good stuff. And again, we'll have time for question and answer if you have any follow-ups that you want to do. And then the next part of this is I gave you kind of 3 examples, and then the videos gave you a couple more. There's always, the administrative, the professional, the business side of implementing something like AI. So when you're looking at starting to implement more and more AI, these are some of the things you want to keep an eye on, some of the risks. The first one, which I ran into with the video technology way back when, before AI, was just your privacy. People are very concerned about privacy. They want to know whether it's a video or whether it's their personal data, that it's secure, reviewed, and safe, that it's not going out into other places. So when you do an AI system, it's the same issue. You really need to pay attention to it. Cost versus return on investment. There's an awful lot of companies, enterprises, very large companies that spent millions of dollars on AI projects in the last year, and there are many failures, if you have not read about them, saying it wasn't worth the money. So my wife and I have been running a digital transformation consulting firm for the last over 20 years. We spend our lives helping companies take technology and basically improve it and make their organizations better as a result of it. What I can tell you is that what happened this last year with some of these AI projects, many of them, most of them, is the same thing we've seen in other technology. And that is, you buy the product, you're convinced by the company that it's not very hard to put in and it'll work terrific and you could save some money on this. And what you find out is it wasn't designed properly for the users. The management reporting wasn't designed the way it should have been. The employees weren't trained the way they should have been. And the results are people are frustrated and they don't get the return of productivity that they want. AI is the same thing. So when you're looking at AI, you need to spend time kind of learning it. You need to make sure that you pick the right place to implement it. And then you want to have a target and measure what you want to accomplish. You don't want to just throw it out and say, we're going to do everything with AI. You basically want to focus on a couple of small projects that you can get done and measure and say, okay, this is really worthwhile, learn from it, and then do another one. And then the liability and fiduciary responsibility. Actually, this room's filled with people, lawyers, accountants, that probably can do a better job on it than I can. But the point being is, AI should not be left alone. You should have a human interface in aspects of whatever you're doing. Things like legal, financial, safety, all those things, absolutely you want to have experts talking to you. Again, I'll use Bruce as an example. When I started the story, is he didn't run off and just do it. He went back to the plumber and he went back to the property manager and discussed it and came up with a good answer with a lot more information than he had from the first initial introduction to this. Okay, so going forward, if I've gotten you slightly interested a little more and I've gotten you more excited about possibly going, oh, maybe we could use this. So here's 4 things that you should do to get started. The first one, which again, when we go to question and answer, I have that second slide or third slide with a lot of lists. I'll give you that. But the first thing you want to do is look at your own job on the board, and then also look at the board, if you happen to be the president of it or you're working together as a group. Put together a list of what are your tasks, what are your processes that you do today. Just list them, just brainstorm, put them all together, and I gave you a cheat sheet to do it. And then what you do is you say, well, based on what I'm learning about AI and based on what I'm reading about, talking to other people, et cetera, let's try and identify some projects that we could use AI for and improve our productivity. So first step is, in my terms, it's called define your needs, define your pain points. The second step is going to your partners. And one of the dirty little secrets about AI in the condo associations and board members is that you're really going to probably get most of your AI benefits from your partners doing the investment. Remember, I don't have to tell you this, but most HOAs don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of resources. They're overworked because of all the paperwork that they have to do right now until they get AI implemented. So the place that you're going to get the help is going to be your partners. So what you want to do for today, and again, we're planning for 2026 right now, we're in the holidays, is you want to set up some meetings right away with your partners. It'll be your property manager, your legal team, your financial team, your landscaping people, all the high costs that you may have on your budget. And sit down and say, can you please explain to me what you're doing right now using AI with the applications and services you're providing? And then the second question is, going into 2026, we want to know what you're budgeting to do in AI, not what you're planning to do. Key word is budget. Because if you don't put the money there by any company, then you don't really have a plan. You have an idea. And if you're running your organization, you want to work with organizations that understand this, and they're going to invest in this area. Because I think one of the things that we're all going to see is that the companies that do these investings, they're going to lower their cost of doing business. And therefore, that's going to help them be more profitable. HOAs are not profit-oriented organizations. All your partners are. They all want to make money. And AI will help them do that. Plus, it will provide a much better quality of service for all of you as these types of technologies roll out. So again, that second step is you want to meet with your team and ask the question. And again, just as a caveat, most small businesses are struggling with this, so they're not going to come back and say, oh, we're state-of-the-art AI, we have it every place. If you find that, that's pretty nice. But most are just getting started as well. The key is to make sure that they're committed to trying to do those types of things to help their customers at a lower cost of doing business. And again, one of the questions that I get asked is, oh, so then we'll get prices that are cut, and we'll have people that are offering less money to do these work. I think we are all kind of aware of that in today's world. You're probably not going to see prices going down next year in 26 and 27. But what you might see is the rises will be much smaller than companies that keep trying to do their job with just people and not have automation to help the people do their jobs and be more productive. So that's one of those gotchas, keep an eye on it, et cetera moments. And then the two last things was, after you go through these two first meetings and you go through and document your needs, you then want to basically sit down and pick a couple of projects to do. Very likely it'll be with your partners. In some cases it may not. To evaluate proposal answers, you could actually use ChatGPT, it's free, and get answers right away. If you have something more complex and you're trying to do financial analysis or you're trying to do these other areas, AI will help, but you really want to work with your partners to do that. And then the last part is policy. And I think the gentleman before me talked about the importance of policy and communicating what's going on. With an association, when you start adding AI, there is reactions all over the place as I started. Some love it, some hate it, some are scared of it, some don't have a clue and don't care. So what you want to do is just document what you're doing for the community so that they know what's coming and know how you're dealing with it, and also probably appreciate that you're looking at ways to provide better services at a lower cost for your community. Good. So 3 things to think about as you're leaving. One is time. The importance of being able to reduce the workload of the board members is so critical. And again, I don't know if you've seen it in your group, but I've seen it in our community over 20 years, that there's so much work as a board member that they leave. They'll spend a couple of years, they'll say, thanks very much, I'm off to something else, I really appreciate it, but I just can't handle it anymore, there's too much work. AI literally is one of those technologies that will allow you to reduce some of that workload for the board members and actually make it more fun. So I think that's something absolutely you should be thinking of when you leave. How can we use AI to make our board members' lives a little bit easier? The second is reducing the operational costs. I think that we've talked through that, and again, later today we're going to have a couple of speakers talking about how you could use some of the services to proactively solve problems, lower cost levels. And the last was security. With video is just one of the major examples. It's door locks, it's garage doors, it's property, inspecting properties so people don't trip. All those types of things, you can do a better job by having this tool by being implemented with your group. So the last comment is AI, just like people worry about their jobs, AI isn't going to be replacing any board members right now. It's starting to be able to make people much more productive. It'll reduce some of the turnover, and it'll give you some solutions that you could have never thought of before as a board to provide to your people. And then you can free them from what we've been talking about is shift from processing paperwork, collecting information, organizing it, trying to get back to residents. How many times, if something doesn't happen, they don't like what the property manager's doing, then they call the board members, and you get 3, 4 emails, if you're lucky, plus phone calls and texts. So there is an opportunity here to really make a difference in your lives. And with that, I am about to start question and answer. And 2 things I'd say is if there are questions, happy to answer them. We're also going to be around for the rest of the day, so if you see me sitting in that back table or walking around, feel free to ask. I love this stuff, love to talk about it. And then the second part of this is if for some reason we don't talk and you want to get more information, I created a QR code for those of you that like QR codes where you can aim your camera at it and get our website for HOA that you can kind of fill in and ask questions offline by yourselves. And the actual website is rossross.com/HOA to make it a little bit easier. But the idea would be if there's any follow-up questions, because there's a lot of information we just covered, I'd be happy to cover it with you. And with that,
Over here.
Dave?
I was especially interested in the alert system or alerting to things breaking down, be it irrigation or the pool pump or something. On those types of things, should I be contacting my irrigation, my landscape contractor, my pool service to see how they use AI, or are there companies that would do overall of those type of alerts for the HOA?
The answer is going to end up being both right now. So the individuals, AI is just rolling out to the SMB market, and many of the partners you have are actually smaller businesses. They're not giant enterprises typically. So for those companies, you're going to want to go to them individually and hear what they're doing for the pool, or what they're doing possibly for the landscaping. Those are two big areas. And then what I would add to that is that there are other companies that are talking about creating complete solutions that can do all of those types of things. But it's scattered. You know, I started looking at some solutions all over the United States. There are companies that do these different things, but there isn't like one list I have that says, here's everything for this area.
Okay. And MindMe does some of the predictive maintenance work.
Perfect.
With his process. So, okay, we're going to go right over here. I'll come back to you.
Thank you. A follow-up on the alerts, specifically regarding the verification by a human factor, and you identified the financial and legal. My experience typically with, say, people at the supervisory level, when that's happened, not through AI, but other kind of resources, they still have such a workload that if something comes through and they kind of look at it and it says, this is the answer, they simply pass it along without really looking into it. So what would be perhaps the steps to put in safeguards on alerts? Is it a ranking system of the criticalness of an item? Please comment.
The best example I can give you is, well, there's a couple of different ways. Number one, it would be preferred for their system to do the checking. So if you're looking at an outside accounting firm, that they should be having these AI systems checking their answers. The other thing that's really nice today is all of us have access to the most powerful tool that has ever existed in any of our lifetimes for free for you to use. So what I do now, and just like this, is every time I get a proposal for a new TV, for something for the furnace, or for something for anything that I get now, I turn around, pop up an AI, and I say, what about this? What are alternatives? Does this make sense? So you can rely on your partners and then turn around and actually do that for yourself to be able to do some of that double checking. Just as a side note, we work with a lot of different companies. We're in Silicon Valley. We do startup. We work with startups a bit. There's one startup that's doing AI agents that I love, and I'm trying to learn how to use their system myself for our business. But when he was doing a webinar, one of the things we talked about is it's an AI agent company. So what he has is 400 AI agents running his startup. He has 10 employees and 400 agents that does sales, marketing, accounting, inventory, training, HR. He has all of them. And then someone asked the question, well, how do you know that they're doing the right thing? I mean, you're really kind of putting yourself at risk as a startup, and how can you do that? He goes, oh, I'm actually dealing with that. He goes, we built quality control AR agents that are monitoring our AI agents for each of the different factors to warn him if someone's going off the rails with something that doesn't look right. So that's a peek of the future of what we're going to be seeing in businesses. But this guy is in it. He builds these things, and he's actually doing what I've heard about, but I haven't heard any other company that has AI quality control agents checking their regular agents that process work. Did that help in terms of? Okay.
We're gonna take one or two more questions. So let's see how Nancy's question stumped the berry. This is.
Okay. Hi. You mentioned some numbers like 92%. So is there an HOA today that's using this? And is there a particular company they're using that could be tailored to other people? Other HOAs love that kind of stuff where they're not the first and there's somebody out who's taking the bleeding edge.
Good question. Very specifically, I've spent a little extra time in this area and actually have gone through some of the demos and dug in pretty deeply. Have any of you using a company called Stan AI in your homeowners yet? It tends to focus on property management companies that are supporting homeowner communities. So Stan AI has been doing this for a couple of years now. They have thousands of customers using this, to answer your question. And they have hundreds of case studies that show the same type of data that you just looked at in the videos. So to answer your question, they're just one of many companies that are starting to provide these services. And in 2026, you're going to start seeing a lot more of these happening. So yes, there are other people using it. We're talking thousands of HOAs, not just a couple. And we're talking hundreds of examples of success like those numbers. And by the way, companies like Salesforce.com, one of the largest software companies in the world, they basically have put this type of technology in for their customers. And offline, I could give you some details that will blow your mind in terms of the effects that it's had to help their company.
Okay, one last quick question, okay?
Since you were asking about service providers, check out Google Notebook LM. You can upload your CCNRs, bylaws, et cetera, point it to websites like Echo, ask it questions. My HOA is doing that right now.
You have a question? No question. He had an answer, no question.
So just to support what he was just saying, is not only will it do a lot of this analysis for you, that's also a technology that can create some videos for you to teach you about subjects. And that's some of the technology we were using today in the presentation. Dave, are we done? Are we finished?
We're done.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much, Barry. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And so we're going to roll into the break right now, but the program is designed so that we have, you know, the legislative update, then we do this general example of technology and going forward and trying to look forward so that you get your associations lined up. The other thing that that we're supposed to be doing in the afternoon, and the reason we planned it this way, is me and Labar Oxney are going to take a look at maintenance planning and types of processes to use and what the risk is and what the rewards can be from having a plan in place that is more predictive rather than reactionary. And so we're going to do that. And then after that, McGill's Duffy is going to talk about insurance per se. Not that insurance is a big deal in the industry, but it is. And they're going to talk about the different types of programs there and how AI is being used in the insurance business. So these are kind of important things to be looking for, and it can help you plan better as a board member.
Is your HOA struggling to stay afloat? Dues going up, reserves going down, special assessments happening? Let McMills Duffy help. We take the mystery out of HOA mismanagement. Our experts provide HOA boards solutions on yield-focused reserves management, board effectiveness, HOA dispute mediation, and insurance coverage and analysis. Reach out to us at mcmillsduffy.com. McMillsDuffy.com.
What do these things all have in common? An elevator alarm, a fire alarm system, your building's access control. They all depend on a connection that works no matter what. For decades, that connection was a simple copper line. This is what the industry calls POTS, plain old telephone service. It's the hidden backbone for the critical systems that keep your residents and properties safe. Major phone providers are now actively retiring their copper infrastructure, driven by FCC deregulation. They're making it expensive, intentionally expensive, to force you to move to a new solution. The message is clear: get off copper or pay the price. If you haven't taken a look at your HOA's phone bill lately, you'll find soaring monthly rates and a maze of excessive fees and surcharges designed to do one thing: push your budget to its breaking point. There is a better way. Sail Internet's POTS replacement service is a modern, reliable, and cost-effective solution that addresses your HOA's problem today. Once we deploy our network at your community, the technology we use seamlessly integrates your phone lines to our network. But here's what makes it truly powerful: triple redundancy. It operates on Sail's high-speed internet and is backed up by 2 separate 4G cellular connections. And with a 24-hour battery backup, your critical systems stay online even when the power goes out. Sail offers a predictable flat-rate price, no hidden fees, no confusing surcharges, no hijinks, just reliable service that saves your association thousands of dollars per year. Stop overpaying for outdated technology, secure your property's essential connections, and start saving today. Learn more at sailinternet.com/communities.
For 50 years, Urban Painting has painted not just walls, we've colored communities, elevated properties, and built lasting trust. Based in Marin County and serving the greater Bay Area, Urban Painting specializes in HOA and commercial painting that stands the test of time. From the very first call to final inspection, we believe in a seamless experience, coordinating schedules, maintaining open communication, and respecting your community's daily life. We're not just painters, we're stewards of your property's integrity. Deferred maintenance can lead to escalating costs and safety risks. Our mission is to protect value, not just aesthetics. At Urban Painting, safety is non-negotiable. Every team member, from field crews to project managers, is trained in the latest protocols and executes work with respect for occupants, code, and environment. The heart of our work are people, our crew members, foremen, estimators, and project managers, many of whom have grown with us over decades. We pride ourselves in low turnover, skilled craftsmanship, and a culture rooted in safety, respect, and accountability. Over the years, we have had the privilege of partnerships with hundreds of HOAs and commercial clients across the region. Their trust has been our greatest honor. This year marks our 50th anniversary, half a century of elevating exteriors, protecting investments, and shaping communities. We are Urban Painting, painting with a purpose, standing on experience, and building relationships that last.
At Associa, it's our mission to bring positive impact and meaningful value to every community. From our humble beginnings in 1979, we have grown to become the world's largest community management service company. Our 14,000 team members in more than 300 office locations serve over 6.5 million homeowners. When helping communities achieve their vision, Our core values guide us every step of the way. They're a constant compass for our company and a common core of our Associa family culture. The work we do is focused on one thing: improving your community. Across our entire network, we deliver the consistent world-class management experience and the services you want and deserve. And no matter your association's need, size, or location, we've got you covered. Our experts serve all community types. However, we're more than management. We're committed to going above and beyond to make a real difference for our clients. When you partner with Associa, you get access to exceptional products and services as well. You can get on-demand maintenance from Associa On Call, personalized insurance from Association's Insurance Agency, rental and leasing management from Rome, and emergency response services, restoration solutions, and large-scale construction services from LHR. Through our partnership with Town Square, we offer an integrated digital platform and experience for managers, residents, and board members. Streamlined communications give homeowners access to the resources they need and simplify community operations with these innovative solutions. And Community Archives simplifies the resale lifecycle and makes it easy for communities to manage their documents and information online. Providing industry-leading services and products wouldn't be possible without industry-leading education and training. We require our managers to obtain CMCA designation within their first year of employment, and we partner with distinguished organizations to offer education and membership perks. We also host board education events, seminars, and webinars, publish informative articles and ebooks on our Community Matters blog, and share lifestyle content in Coming Home magazine. But our commitment to community doesn't stop there. We've developed programs, initiatives, and a disaster relief nonprofit to focus on doing good for families, individuals, communities, and the planet. Because of our work, we have received many awards, accolades, and positive feedback from a long list of clients and partners during our nearly 50 years in business. We want to add your community to that list. Visit us online 24/7, give us a call toll-free, or visit or call your local Associa branch to find out how our management services, solutions, and resources can enrich the place you call home. We believe we can change the industry for the better and improve the lives of the people we serve. Partner with us today and experience the future of community.
So we're going to start a program on maintenance planning and looking forward and how to do all of that. And MindMe Technologies and Labara Oxney from an insurance company are going to talk about what the risks are and rewards of planning ahead. Human Belandi and Bridget Tabor, take it away. Good luck.
All right, Uman, we're on deck.
Hi, Bridget. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, sir. Please do time us.
No, don't time us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all having a good lunch. My name is Homan Bolandi, and I'm the founder and CEO of MindMe Technology. We are an engineering and technology firm. And Bridget?
I am with Labara Oxney. Thank you all for attending. And we're going to talk to you about your two favorite subjects, which both involve spending all your money, maintenance and insurance, right? Yay! But what we're going to do today is we're going to have you look at it a little bit differently, because maintenance and insurance goes together much like peanut butter and jelly, chips and salsa. You can't have one without the other, meaning you can't have insurance without maintenance. So strap in, and we're about to take off. All right, Uman?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, here we go.
All right. So these are the recent events that took place. And as you can see from left to right, we have probably read some articles, seen them on TV. And yes, on the left, we have Florida Champaign. And on the right, we have Berkeley Balcony. Berkeley Balcony was the birth of the whole SB 326. Unfortunately, people died. They become, the SB 326 became a law because people actually died from it. And if you really think about it, what's in common? Bridget, what do you think is common here?
No maintenance.
All right. And then the second part of it is when we really look at it from my opinion, in my opinion, when we look at the building, any building has a tendency of speaking to us. Either is speaking, whispering, or yelling, or screaming at us. Let me tell you, these buildings said, I'm giving up on you.
Yep.
And the other part of it is when you look at the outside, the skin of the building, what do you see? You see wear and tear. You see perhaps signs of water and moisture. And now we're able to actually show you how your eyes could see things that you couldn't see before. So that's one of the key takeaways from our presentation.
So why risk management matters. I don't think we really need to go through this too much, Uman. I know the attorneys touch on this quite a bit. Y'all fiduciaries, you're here to address maintenance, insurance, life safety issues. So let me just go to the next one. So we've already kind of talked about the link between maintenance and insurance. I'm sure there's anybody here that doesn't really understand that because I'm not going to talk about this slide. Everybody's got it? All right, next slide.
Now, Bridget, I have a question for you. You're the insurance lady, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
If I'm reactive versus proactive, what's going to happen to my premium?
Well, if the carrier decides to keep you on the risk, your premium's going to go way up.
Can they cancel me?
Of course they can, and I don't care what the legislature says. They can create the laws, any law that they want, but it's up to the carrier, like we heard earlier, whether they decide to stay in California or not. So we want them to stay in California, so that's why this presentation is so important, because maintenance drives the cost of insurance.
Thank you, Bridget. Hi, Bridget.
So now we have some managers in the room. I know there's some managers, management companies around here. So when you're working with the manager, they're sitting there in their little heads. These things are swirling around their heads. And they're thinking, oh my God, there's so much going on, and the board's asking me about this, skyrocketing insurance and labor costs and tariffs and special assessments. So I'm very happy to see all of you here because you're getting a bird's eye view. If you don't already understand what your manager's going through, this shot right here tells you. And if they're a portfolio manager, they're not just dealing with your association. They're more than likely, most of them have minimum 5-6 associations. So 4 ways to manage risk. I think the attorneys have hit on this: acceptance, avoidance, mitigation, and transfer. And what we try to do is we try to do a little bit of the last two, which is mitigation through maintenance, and transfer. You transfer your risk from your board to the carrier that is insuring your property. All right, Uman. What do you think? I don't know where these arrows are pointing. What does this mean?
So basically, it's telling us if we are doing something, from a cost perspective, how things are going to drive the cost for us.
Okay.
And so when we really look at some of these challenges or some of the issues that we see here, the picture, from a board perspective, I just joined this thing. I'm a volunteer. I wish there was a way I could see things so I don't have to chase it again. So for example, I replaced my roof 7 years ago. Do I really need to do maintenance on it? Or just everything's going to be okay? Or I just fixed the asphalt. Why the problem shows up in the same place? And more importantly, we all buy cars, $20,000, $80,000, $100,000, doesn't matter how much. It comes with the engine light indicator. Why couldn't I have it for my largest investment that I have done, my house?
Oh, but you can.
Oh, we can?
Yes.
Talk to me.
All right, well, we'll get there. Slow your roll. All right, so I'm going to let Uman talk about this. This is one of the most important slides. I don't care if you're a mixed-use condominium, standard garden style. This is where the carrier always starts. And this is where Uman is going to shine.
Thank you, ma'am.
Tell them how.
Yes, ma'am. So, Barry earlier talked about Rolls-Royce engine, how they put sensors all over that wonderful engine so that we can fly across from San Francisco to Japan. Unfortunately, 35, 40, 50 years ago when they built the house, they didn't put sensors in my balcony, in my stucco, in my roof, none of that. So either I can wait until everything goes south, or I can use time as my best asset. Visit the community more often and create proactive preventive maintenance plan. And more importantly, just because we have the data, create what we, preventive maintenance. And because with the data, we can actually know what's going on.
And also, just on that last slide, also, when you bind insurance coverage, used to be once in a while, some carriers would send inspectors out. Inspectors are going out on all policies, especially here in California. And these are the things that we're looking at. That's what they are looking at. As an agent, I look at these things, so I do kind of like a pre-inspection. And then if you pass my pre-inspection, and then I can tell the carrier, hey, I think this is a pretty good risk. And if you don't pass my pre-inspection, I'll let you know what you can expect from your carrier. So all of these things should be in your reserve study, including utilities, because it used to be you didn't have to reserve for plumbing and electrical. Law passed, I think it was last year, where's Nathan? But there was a law passed that you now have to include seen and unseen components. And why it matters? Insurance. Now, the other thing I get from boards is they say, we haven't had any losses, and I still don't understand why my coverage is going up. Well, the carrier also looks at what we call environmental conditions. So it may not be your property directly, but it could be where your property is located. And these are the conditions that they look at. In some communities down in San Diego, we have their proximity to the Pacific Ocean has caused a lot of problems with the exterior of the structure. There's paper out there that's disintegrating. People that live inland usually have the termites. And if you live on the coast, you got the salt eating away at your structure. So even if your property looks great and pristine, that doesn't mean that you may not get an impact on insurance.
So you're telling me salt matters?
Salt matters.
Oh my goodness.
Everything matters.
You touched on the electrical and mechanical.
Oh, well, everybody knows about electrical. I don't think, is there anybody in here that was built before 1980? Wow, okay. So getting back to the reserve study thing, it used to be that you didn't have to reserve for electrical. I can tell you right now, carriers, if you're even 30 years old, and if you have not replaced your wiring, they may keep you, but some people are seeing 40, 50, even 100% rate increase if they keep you in admitted markets. You might end up in the non-admitted market. And if you have aluminum wiring, just forget it. You're going to the non-admitted market. And those premiums jump anywhere from 100 to 200%. So,
wow.
And obviously why, starting fire. And people want to install solar, and they want EV charging station. I can tell you right now, if you do it, upgrade your electrical, because if you don't, and a carrier goes out there and sees the electrical panels have not been upgraded, even though the law says you can do all this solar and EV charging station, the carrier says, nope, we won't insure you unless you update the electrical panels. So even inside your home, it's not just the master panel, it can also involve your sub-panels.
So, Bridget, earlier, I forgot the gentleman's name, Nathan.
Nathan, yeah.
Yes, Nathan, what a good man. He talked about SB 900. So I guess we can skip this one because
yeah, Nathan already touched on this one.
And
so, and plumbing, everybody understands plumbing. Do I really need to say anything about plumbing? 85% of HOA losses are plumbing losses. Water, sewer. Please take care of it. It's expensive, but if you start reserving now, if you're 20 years old, if you're 30 years old, you might be looking forward to giving it a special assessment. And if you also have balconies, boards are getting slammed because now you have to reserve for electrical and plumbing and balcony and utilities. And we're saying this because I know the owners are going to come back to you and say, why are we paying so much money? You are now having reserved for stuff that you didn't have to reserve for 5 years ago.
Now, what about life safety and fire protection? So you touched everything except
well,
those guys.
You know what? That's just to keep everybody safe. And if we could figure out how to use this to get around the $100 fine, I'll let you know. right? But everyone, and please, your sprinkler inspections are the most important, especially if you have several unit or stacked units. So you want to make sure that you get the fires, the CO2, the fire extinguisher. They come out there, but they forget to update the tag. I had one carrier that wanted to drop. I'm like, no, they did it. They paid the bill. Your manager, there's a lot falling on the manager, so when you guys are out there doing your inspections, your landscape people, have them look at those things too. Fire-rated doors. Don't let people prop the doors open. I know it's convenient, and they prop open gates, and it's convenient, but the carriers don't like it because now people are coming into the community. They can slip and fall. There's a liability issue. So, you just got to batten down all the hatches.
Now, Bridget, talk to us about the liability.
Oh, everybody here knows about liability.
Oh,
Anybody
they do?
here that know about anybody knows people, if they drown in your pool, you get sued. If somebody skateboard and they hit their head, you get sued. If somebody takes your picture and you didn't give them consent, the board gets sued, right? You guys, liability claims are way worse than property claims, because property claims, you can say, well, I couldn't see behind the wall. But enforcing and working with your managers and keeping those CCNRs enforced and following the rules and treating everyone the same, this will keep the liability claims down. The one thing on the structure that hits you hard on the liability claims will be the railings and the stair stringers. Those are those concrete steps, and I've seen some community where the first or second one is missing, and somebody put a little step stool to get to the third one. Those are, yeah, I know. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it either. I was going to show a picture, but it had the HOA's name in there, so I couldn't bring it. But it wasn't up here, it was in Southern California. So in lighting, where's Nathan again? A lady installed lighting and a board made her remove the lighting, and then she was attacked. She was attacked in her own community, and she sued the board because she was worried about getting mugged and robbed. And they would not install the lighting, and she installed it, and then there was a lawsuit against the association. So just think twice. I know, attorneys cost money, but sometimes it's better to pay for a $100 to $200 consultation than a $150 million lawsuit.
So you're telling me it's about prevention.
Okay. And yeah, keep your storage room clean, the garages as much as possible. I have some HOAs are getting non-renewed. They went out there, and this is when gas was really expensive, and somebody had like 5-10 gallon of gas stored in their garages because gas prices was going up. Carriers are looking at everything today. Debris that can catch fire. Trees, I know I love trees, but I don't like pine trees, needles. The pine needles are a huge fire hazard. Anything else?
No, you're doing
okay,
good.
Let's go on to the next one.
So also talk to us about the inspection by unit owners, and more importantly, the contractors and in their little sandbox.
Well, unit owners, especially if the policy goes into the interior of the unit, they want the board to pay for everything, right? Or no? They say we'll pay for it. And you can't revise your CCNRs, right? Well, here's what you do. You just increase that deductible. Now, you have to make sure you talk to your agent and you don't violate the federal lending guidelines. But you use the deductible to control the owners. And you just say, we'll pay for the big things if you pay for the small things. And you can generally get away with a $25,000 deductible. And you can also institute a separate water deductible. So that will help keep you insurable. These are all the things we just tell people to look at, which you saw, the washing machine, the ice maker, the dishwasher. Those are all things that cause water leaks. So, all right, Umina, why don't you talk to them about which they probably already know, how most management inspections work.
So, when we do, later on in the next few slides, you're going to see what it means when Bridget and we go for a walk, or manager and board members, they go for a walk. And yes, they do their due diligence of walking, but can they see everything? Can they really climb a ladder and see, oh, Jesus, I see, my plywood is turning into paper or not? Those would be the difficult areas that are going to create the blind spots. And does insurance care about blind spot or no?
Oh, yeah, everybody cares.
Oh,
even the
good to know.
owners care. And the vendors, there's a lot of good vendors here. I've met them all. They're all wonderful and made me feel very welcome because I'm new to Northern California. But two, outside the roofer, most vendors don't really get up high off of the ground. It's always a visual inspection looking up. But Uman has a solution for that, don't you, Uman?
Yes, ma'am. Let's look at it together. So what we're about to watch is, first part of the video is about the perspective of, let's say Bridget and I were doing the walk. Yes, this is from a 6'5", 6'7" perspective. I'm lucky I'm turning my head around. Bridget and I were walking down this beautiful walkway. On the left, we see a 2-story building. Bridget, I bet you $5 we missed a lot, did we?
Well, yeah, I wear glasses.
Yes, ma'am. So, okay.
And I didn't bring my binoculars.
Now, check this out. Let's see what the system can see. So what you're looking at, these numbers represent cluster of issues. Because of the amount of imaging that we do, we build a digital twin of your asset. Doesn't matter if it's a high-rise, mid-rise, or wonderful garden style. What Bridget and I, where we walked, was precisely where the hand is pointing to. And by the way, you see that little balloon thingy? We missed a lot, Bridget. What did we miss?
I don't know.
There was a dry rot. Okay, nothing to write home about that one. But poor design, no flashing, signs of water. Why that wall matters? Because it's a bearing wall.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Yes, ma'am. And it carries the load.
Uh-oh.
And water makes it through. Now I have a structural problem. So as you can see, earlier we talked about prevention. And with the digital twin, because we have so many images, it's like putting your house into an MRI machine. Now you know my plywood is turning into paper, or no, I don't have plywood. Here we go. So being able to uncover the blind spot, if you will. And so how does that happen? Yes, you can have either thermal, separate on an individual basis. Thermal is the ability to show you what moisture where the moisture is, okay? And also you can have high resolution or high resolution imaging, or you can have LiDAR. LiDAR shows you topography changes. As a result, you can talk about soil stability, cracks, are those stress cracks or what is it? But when you marry the three, you're gonna get a lot more from it. And then be able to identify issues such as trip hazards. Those are the annoying stuff, okay? And all issues will be geotagged, timestamped, and dated. Why that is important?
Well, because now the carriers are asking me, are there any, and I'm not kidding, unforeseen issues? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't see inside the wall. So what I'm trying to do is work with the carriers to get them to take this kind of technology seriously. Because we have to ask these questions, and I know your agents ask you these questions, and then you go, well, I don't know. I had a carrier ask me how much water was in a pool. I'm like, I don't know how much water is in that pool. I can tell you how deep it is, but this is the kind of thing that we're hoping to get carriers to look at, and we can say, well, we're just going to give them 30% because we know HOAs don't do this or whatever. But when we have this kind of documentation, we can say, look, we did imaging. There's no water here. We can say there's no wood rot here. We can say this structure is sound because you have all of this documented into your software, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then it can also help with planning future expenses. So before the landscape committee comes to you, and no disrespect to the landscape committee, but y'all get a lot of money. And so when the landscape committee comes to you, we can say, well, we'd love to replant all those roses in front, but we have potential water issues that we didn't see before that we see now.
And more importantly, going back to Barry's example of Rolls-Royce engine, they flooded with a bunch of sensors. Here, we can increase the frequency of visits. Now you can see things are getting better or worse. Later on, you're going to see an example of that. So for example, here you can see, oh, by the way, how's my gutter system look? Is it a shower head or is it a gutter? By the way, it's a joke. The reason I say shower head is because if you see sunlight through it, it's a shower head. and then be able to have all of those things documented, as Bridget said, in one place so that you can see rate of decay, how things are getting worse or better. And also the same thing is true for roof. What you're looking at from left all the way to the middle, left is a high resolution imaging. Then we have what we call red hot and white and gray. Each one of them speak differently to us, but when we marry it, this is what you're looking at. All right? And so here, the reason you're looking at this image, especially the first one that I highlighted, is because you're standing on top of an underground garage. Earlier this year, when we had the major storms, they put shower curtain on the cars. All right? Now, can we see on the facade? Can we scan the entire facade? Doesn't matter, 1-story, 3-story, or 12 or 13-story. The answer is yes, those can be done. Now, what we're about to watch, if this allows me.
We have time. How much time we got? Where's our timekeeper?
No, we do. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. Nobody showed up yet. All right. So what you're looking at is high resolution, thermal coming over as a layer over it. Now is going to show you a lot more about that beautiful place that you have. And here it's really the question is, can we distinguish energy loss from water damage? Yes or no? And what is it?
I don't know. I felt like I'm at my doctor. Tell me what I'm looking at.
So it's going to show you in that area why there's so much concentration. And yes, I'm missing insulation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. Now, the second part of the video we're going to watch is basically shows that life before maintenance and life after maintenance, so that you can ask the right question of what's going on. You're looking at December, new layer coming over is March of the following year. As you can see, recommendations were made, HOA followed it, and things are getting better. And believe it or not, there's a story behind this. I don't know if we have time.
Nope.
If you guys want to come to my table, I'll tell you a story behind it. All right, so now the question is, where is my water damage areas? All right? And being able to answer all of those questions. And here, what you're looking at is all those little white dots are high-resolution images, over about 20,000 images, from which we build a digital twin of your asset. And then you're going to say, hey, look, you know what, you're cute. You're showing me this beautiful picture, but talk to me about thermal. Talk to me about moisture. Yes, we can do that. And so now here's another video that we're going to watch together. Hopefully.
I don't know if we have time for another video.
Oh, no. Oh, we do. Why not? Everybody wants to watch video. Videos are good to see. 20 minutes. We're good. All right. So now that we have 20 minutes, let me come over here then. Okay. So 20 minutes. What you're looking at, this is a digital twin of this is a digital twin of your asset. The beauty of it is, because this is built from 20,000 images, any point on that space, for example, in this case, is thinking there's a crack over there. And all the images for that very perspective, for that very point, is getting loaded up. Now we can see, is that a crack? No, that's the cable routing. Okay, but please pay attention to the amount of detail you're seeing on the finished paint. That's the level of detail you're going to get. Now, why digital twin matters to us? You're able to now create your own scope of work, if you wish. If not, you can contact somebody to do it, because you can actually do measurements now. You want to buy a window, you want to buy a railing, you want to buy whatever it is. And most important part of it is, can I leverage this, since we are an engineering firm? Can I leverage this investment so that if you decide you need to stamp plans, help you out so that it basically save you some money?
And then everybody, can you help them do an RFP so
Yes,
they
ma'am.
know? So they get apples to apples, not apples to orange to pear bids, right?
Precisely.
They want everything. Okay, same
So
thing.
now what you're looking at from that image, we're able to create a set of plans for you, stamp plans. So you can take to the city, and we will help you to get permit if you wish. And now that we saw this beautiful thing, where are we? Oh, it's the same
I
thing?
think we saw that video.
Oh, I thought you wanted to see it twice.
No,
Okay.
no.
So in a summary, what did we see? Convention method, when Bridget and I, we walk or manager and I, or manager and Bridget walk, I'm lucky if I turn my head around or lift it, okay? So I call it from eye level down to ground. And I'm taking notes, and guess what? Taking some pictures. However, what you saw so far, ability to have a comprehensive report, analysis, not we're handing somebody 20,000 images and say, good luck with your life, or 10 hours of video, okay? And the most important part of it is from air to ground coverage.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I see something that says evaluate condition over time. Does that apply to slopes?
Oh, I'm glad you brought it up.
Oh my God, I should.
Let me talk to you about that one now. So over time, slope or no slope doesn't matter. Slope, what it does for us, it gives us the headache about soil stability and sinkholes and those type of conversation that we're going to get into. However, rate of decay means over time how things are getting worse or things are getting stabilizing. You saw that video. How basically, you know, the story behind that building is because insurance company got a hold of the satellite image. There are two HOAs living in that building. On the left is like an L shape. On the right is another L shape. As you all notice, on the left, look clean and nice. They got an increase of 10%. On the right, they didn't do maintenance. Deferred maintenance costs money later.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened was their insurance went up 4.5 times, from $23,000 to almost $100,000.
Well, the other thing is, too, the carriers are doing, they're using a lot of technology. They're using drones. There's people who getting letters in the mail, HOAs and single-family homes. The carriers are sending out drone and using a lot of this technology. And you'll say, I never saw anybody on my property. You won't, because they're using the technology to do, again, they understand that humans, even their inspectors, miss things. So we want to be a little bit more proactive on our inspection side. So what's next?
So,
well, you know, I think we've already kind of talked about these things, and I think most of you guys, there's no new board member here, right? It's because I want to get to the Q&A, so that's the next one. So, does anybody do a meeting? Do you guys do an insurance meeting or insurance analysis meeting? How many people do that? Wow, great. Five boards, 6 boards? Obviously, you want to have your manager there, which may or may not be relevant because I know sometimes you're limited to the number of meetings. But you definitely want your broker there, you want your reserve analyst, your vendors that you're working with, your maintenance supervisor if you have one, and legal counsel if they will attend for free. I don't know, most of mine won't. But this is the planning meeting, much more as important as your budget meeting, because this meeting needs to happen before your budget meeting. Because if you don't do this meeting, your budgets are not going to hold up. And you know the law, if you don't let the potential new owners, and when you send out that end of year disclosure, and then you don't let them know, and you say, well, I didn't know, and the new owner will say, we should have known. So that's why this meeting is really, really important. So if you're not having this meeting with your agent and your manager, you really should. And understand, please, most people won't call their carrier because they're worried about getting non-renewed. Calling your agent or broker is not the same as calling your carrier. My clients call me, they tell me what they're concerned about. I listen, I talk to their vendors, and then I let them know. But the carriers, they want to work with us. They really do. They just want to know what they're insuring. They know that there's good risk and there's bad risk, and they're okay with that, right? They just want to know what you're dealing with. So don't not talk to your agent. Too many people don't talk to their agent. And we can help you, Uman can help you, your vendors can help you prevent a larger loss if you're willing to share the information with us, because we will help keep you insurable.
So one thing, if you're going to walk away from this talk, there's one key element: early detection, so that you can get into what? Prevention? That's the key word.
That's the key word.
And
So that's it for us. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? So we kind of rushed through this to give people time for questions. I think we got a few questions. I think we got a few questions out there.
I'm going to run out there.
All right.
Run out there. Oh, there's one. Yeah, you get.
Just a few years back in Alameda, our reserve statesmen started saying, not enough, not enough, not enough, in which case you sign them and go on. Are the insurance companies looking at those now?
I don't think I understood the question. What was the last part?
Do insurance companies, we got insurance despite the fact that we were underfunded for reserves. We lost the power to get good loans.
Yeah.
But do insurance companies care about that?
Yes,
Now,
and the insurance,
they didn't care then.
The insurance carriers are now, not only are they requesting the reserve study, but they are also requesting the financial. And I had a carrier decline to bid due to poor financials, on financials alone. Because they look at your finances, they look at your reserve study, they look at the components, and they see how many of those zeros and ones that you have, and they see what your assessments are, and then they do the math, and then they said, oh, well, if our premium is going to be 40% more, they will either refuse to bid, or I've had communities be non-renewed because of financials, because they can determine if you have enough money to fix things.
Okay, so two things. One is, since you won't cover earthquake, do the inspections cover things like earthquake hardening?
There's carriers of the California Earthquake Authority. There's another carrier called Modus where you can buy earthquake coverage through. If the HOA can't afford, or they need to save their money for maintenance, there's a company out there that will provide earthquake.
Well, what would they do? The inspection, like? No.
Yes, they will. And the ones that they don't like those ones with what they call tuck under parking, where you have a building.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they have a building like this and cars can park underneath it. Yeah, they'll charge you more if you have tuck under parking.
And then I'm not sure most people are aware of the pipe. Some of the pipe stuff is going to the owner, replacing pipes.
But even if it's owner responsibility, when there's a loss paid, and because of how the California Department of Insurance is, a lot of times, especially some carriers, they'll just cover the loss whether the board wants it covered or not. And we can talk about that later, but some things happened with the Davis Sterling a few years ago that changed maintenance, and it would say that the HOA, that the owner is responsible to maintain, but the board could be still responsible to insure, which if there's a loss, the board could have to pay out on that loss, even if the owner is responsible to maintain the component. Hurry.
Thank you. So I live in an aging community. Our the buildings were built in 1987, and it was converted to a condo, went through the condo conversion in the early 2000s, 2005. We've never heard of doing an insurance inspection, so I'm really excited about that because I personally believe in being proactive. But what comes to my mind immediately is the more we know, the more expensive it's going to be. And I know you're going to say, well, is it more expensive to fix what needs to be fixed or to just turn a blind eye to it? But that's reality. Reality is the more you find out that this needs to be fixed and that needs to be fixed.
Well, it's a balance, right? So if there's a life safety issue, like you have a sprinkler system and you don't keep it functioning, right? That's a life safety issue, so you can't ignore it. But if you see some trees are starting to lift some sidewalks, you can plan to deal with those things because sticking your head in the sand and ignoring it isn't going to be an issue. But a lot of carriers I work with, I have a community that has 39 buildings. And I said, they can't afford to fix all 39 buildings. There's 500 units. So we gave them a plan and said, these are the worst, kind of like with the balconies. 2 years ago, these are the worst, where they're going to do these quarter, the first part of the year, these the second part of the year. And then we got a contractor that was willing to go out because they got the job, was willing to go out, and if it was rainy season, they would go out and patch the roof free for the association because they did the contract with them, so they're on site. So if a building leaked, they just patched it. So you can work with your contractors to help, mitigate some of the costs, but still take care of the bigger stuff first.
Also the fact that, I want to answer that, also the fact that you will get a plan, and you will have a priority of what needs to be the short-term, mid-term, long-term plan, that what needs to be done and why. Also, it helps you to not get into the trap of special assessment. You know ahead of time. It's like having a bad knee. You go to a doctor, he plays with it, and he says, hey, I need to have an MRI. MRI is going to show him, is it a partial tear or complete tear? Yeah, you're going to have a surgery, or you can do physical therapy. So that's the analogy I can use for your example.
And the carriers like to know that you're aware of it, and you can say, yes, they're aware, and they have a plan, and they're reserving for this. So. Yes, absolutely. I suggest minimum annually, and at least 90 days before your insurance renewal. And you're doing it with your reserve study, because don't the reserve study, you do it, you're doing your inspection, so you can sync it up with your reserve inspection, or you can sync it up with your insurance. All right.
We have another question.
Roskin, there's one.
I am curious about earthquake insurance, since it was brought up before. My understanding, at least our carrier dropped all earthquake insurance for all master policies in California, and just not us, but all HOAs had it dropped. And when our agent was looking around, it was going to be like 5 times as much, which we couldn't afford. But you're saying that there are plans that are out there for?
There is a carrier that writes a program that is very similar to the CEA program, and they have actual higher limits, and it also gives you all of the things that the CEA program pays for, but you pay for it out of your own pocket. The HOA pays, there's a minimum enrollment fee, and then the owners can buy it, and every owner doesn't have to have it.
Not owners, the master policy.
No, I'm saying the program that's out there, it's hard to find. There's a few carriers that will write it for the master policy. And those who can't get somebody to write it for the master, they will write it for individuals like the CEA.
Okay, and I'm just curious, a show of hands, how many HOAs do have earthquake insurance for their master policy? Okay, not much.
A lot of people have had to drop that because they've had to redirect those funds because of the SB 326, yeah. But then there are some owners who want to keep some kind of coverage to cover that special assessment, that assessment coverage. So that's why some individual owners do get it.
Any more questions?
We
All
finished
right.
on time.
Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. Wonderful. Great job. Appreciate it. So one of the takeaways is that there are different types of maintenance planning. Some is when it breaks, fix it, right? That's one. Or 2 is that you go to a scheduled maintenance and review, and you kind of say, oh, that's a problem. There's a third way, sort of a statistical way, which I think Kuhlman is getting to with his program, is there's a way to predict, and usually you use statistics, and you do some baseline data collection, and you use statistics to have an expected time of failure for like a roof or a wall or water system, what have you. And that's the way a lot of manufacturing organizations do their maintenance plan, because a lot of what they have is very expensive and they can't be down. I used to work in the potato French fry business, and the manufacturers there use 1 million gallons of water a day, and they have equipment that if it goes down, the plant goes down, and they're losing millions a day if they can't get their parts that are specialized, usually from some other place. So they had to have backup parts. But what they would do is they predict it using statistical assessment, and then they would go ahead and schedule the replacement and bring in the new equipment and replace it before it actually broke. And that's kind of the way it is. With aging communities, we have a lot of problems. Aging communities, when you get to be about 30 years old, your community is 30 years old, that's when major systems start failing. And so just remember, about 30 years old, things start falling apart. It's kind of like people. So, well, at least me, right? Yeah. So you were thinking the same thing. I know. So in any case, that's one of the things that we need to be really paying attention to is that, the buildings are getting older. We're living in these older buildings. They're not, we're not getting any younger. And frankly, you're going to have these major systems start failing on you. The reason you would do predictive maintenance is to avoid and to do the planning that Hooman's talking about, is to do the planning so you put money away so that you don't have a special assessment that you have to do and go make a lot of people really angry. And some people that really can't afford it and they'd have to move out of the community. Mary, you got a question?
Something kind of in between Hooman's discussion about more comprehensive preventative maintenance. I meant to bring this up when they were speaking. Last year when I came to this conference and I saw Hooman's technology, drone-enabled technology, I asked him if we could use that to do a facade inspection of our 13-story building because it was required for this year. And he did. So it was a way for us to, I think, use a required inspection, which usually doesn't provide a lot of additional value to the HOA, and come up with, as a result, a digital twin. So taking that first step towards a more comprehensive preventative maintenance, but doing it with a mandated inspection. So I just wanted to mention a way to bridge that.
Excellent, thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on now. We're caught up on time, so I appreciate that, Bridget. I know it was you that really caught us up on time. So thank you so much for that. And we have our next presentation that's going to be our final presentation of the day. And I'm really excited. We have a new consulting group in the HOA industry, and Heather McMills and Jill Duffy are going to talk about insurance and really get into it a little more. It's a very important subject, and I know a lot of HOAs are having issues with this. They have some ideas and some thoughts about how to understand the insurance industry a little better, and maybe some suggestions out of it. So I'm hoping we have a good time, a little bit of time to talk. And then after that, I'm going to be doing we're going to have a little break, and then we're going to come back and I'll do the grand prize drawing. It'll be real quick at the end. So let's welcome Jill Duffy and Heather McMills to the stage for their presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave, for the wonderful introduction. So I'm Jill Duffy, co-founder of McMills Duffy Consulting Group, and we are really pleased to be here today. This is such a wonderful event, and to be part of it is just absolutely fantastic. As David said, we are new to ECHO, and since, I think, August, and we're really excited to be a part of it. Met many of you wonderful people already, and excited to talk a little bit about insurance and future forward planning.
So, I'm Heather McMills. Can you hear me? Okay, Heather McMills. I'm the other part of the equation here. Today we're going to go through the conversation about strategic insurance planning for the future. Being in California, we've got a new normal and it's chaotic. So we're going to go through this presentation. We'll be covering the state of the industry briefly, non-traditional insurance solutions that you can take advantage of. We're going to just touch on how to obtain appropriate coverages and don't leave any liability gaps, and reduce your board liability. And then finally, how to use reserve studies and technology to get more favorable policy terms. So we're going to talk a little bit about the industry. Some drivers here in California, and Florida and Texas as well, that you're aware of.
you can see on the screen. There's two major buckets that we put those in today. We've got some downsides, and I'll go over those first. We've got the insurance industry is suffering from geopolitical macro events. So all that means is weather-related losses, which we all know about, legal risks, and social inflation. And I'll talk a bit about social inflation in a minute. We're suffering what I call a yield desert. Insurance companies are investment companies, as you know, and they're really struggling to find yield to offset their losses with their investment arms. And so they're switching, kind of pivoting to private equity, private credit, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it's what they're doing to get that yield that they're not enjoying right now with all the losses that they've paid out. Tariffs and construction inflation. Construction inflation should be of significance to boards because it determines your replacement costs and what it costs to maintain the property. The compounded annual growth rate for construction inflation has been 12 to 15% over the last 7 years. There's a 5 to 7% increase expected in 2026. So we have to be aware of that too. So we're talking about material inflation, we're talking about social inflation, which primarily involves court cases and court payouts, verdicts from juries, and that stems from kind of a social attitude of anti-corporate sentiment. So that's not good for insurance companies, and they've had to suffer that in the courtrooms. As we've seen, they call these kind of nuclear verdicts and thermonuclear verdicts for plaintiffs. So boards need to be aware of that in the sense that, if juries are sympathetic to homeowners, that can be an issue for the HOA. All the more reason to do your due diligence and planning. On the upside of the industry, there is technology, and there has been a mandate in California. So it is a law by Ricardo Lara, the Commissioner of California. He's made a kind of a combination initiative in the state requiring underwriters in this state to write a minimum of 85% of their statewide market share in California in wildfire distressed areas. So that should be of particular interest here and other parts of the state, especially Southern California. The other half of that initiative is he's giving benefits to the insurance companies with using AI-driven models in rate making. So what that means is they can use catastrophic models forward-looking, and they can embed or build those forward-looking data discoveries in rates into rates that they quote their policyholders, which they weren't able to do before. So while rates are usually quoted on current conditions, these are forward-looking conditions. So that's one benefit to the insurance companies, and probably it's transparent for the policyholders too, because they'll have more of an idea of what to expect with regard to premiums. I wanted to just talk about what the result of these kind of inflation aspects are for us as HOAs, board members and HOAs. It has resulted in higher rates, restrictive underwriting policy, standards, and market consolidation. So there's been a little M&A going on in the insurance industry, and so that makes fewer carriers on the market, and a lot of carriers in different domains of the insurance industry have been acquired. Not the major carriers, but in different lines of insurance, maybe not the main liability lines, maybe E&S or umbrella, which we'll talk about later. And that makes fewer choices, makes it harder to get insurance. So there's a supply and demand issue going on in the industry that we as board members and HOAs need to be aware of. Let me switch up here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So this is interesting. I found this. This is 10 million plus verdicts by case. Premises liability, so getting hurt on a property, and other negligence could be a variety of things. That's about 23% of these kind of large verdicts. So I think that's interesting, and it should be of concern to boards to keep the properties maintained. I want to switch to Jill now. That's all I have for the moment. I'm going to come back at the end of the presentation and talk about board governance frameworks and how you can minimize your liability and use reserve study to be strategic about insurance planning. I'm going to hand it off to Jill. Did you want to ask the question, or do you want me to ask it? So what do you think? I'm going to get your answers first. We have an answer, but I want to get your answers first. What is the biggest insurance issue for HOAs right now? That too, yes. What else? You had your hand up, ma'am? Yes. Anyone else? Yep. And that speaks to, that's the cause of this, this coverage and skyrocketing cost of coverage in an unstable market. So definitely, like we said, it's harder to get the insurance you had. So what does that mean for boards and HOAs? It means you have to get more creative. You have to think outside the box, get some thought diversity, get some advisory in your, in your stall, and make some decisions for the HOA. Hand it off to Jill.
Thank you, Heather.
So we're going to talk about solutions, insurance solutions that aren't in your typical bucket. So Jill's going to speak to some innovations that may have been around for a while, but it's how you apply them. Are you applying these kinds of policies correctly or innovatively in your HOAs to cover, gaps, basically? So I'll hand it off to Jill.
So yes, this is an interesting topic, and we're going to move into specifically what we've heard today. And you're hearing a lot about technology and AI, what it is. Well, this is a very important factor within insurance. And how does it work with insurance? How does it help us, you as a board member, securing insurance, and so forth? So in insurance, I feel data validation is critical. I was an underwriter some years ago, so I'm sorry if it kind of bleeds through. So having that data validation really is critical to really knowing the whole story and seeing what that exposure is. Now, we're human, right? So now we have some tools that have come along, and catastrophe modeling's been around, but now with AI, there's just so much more that is being used to gather to make more accurate assumptions of what the risk is. And with these quicker assessments, we have a better effect on the loss impact. Maybe the payout happens faster. It doesn't take a couple months to figure out what really happened if it's not a major catastrophe situation. And along with AI, drones. Okay, we all know drones, those are cool. They can go over and they can look at the buildings. But what in the insurance industry, where they're really critical, is they can get into areas that aren't accessible, where it's a claims handler or whatever. They can't get in there, so it could take months for that fire to, pat down and be safe for people to go in. So now immediately, having the ability to use drones to go in and assess what has happened, to take it back and be able to start working on that claim process and those issues. So really, we're dealing at such a faster speed than we have, and each decade gets better and better. And even though the insurance industry is archaic, and it's true, with movement, there are now some tools to try to make it better. And that does increase the service that goes to policyholders, and hopefully that you on the boards and in your personal life are seeing that. Okay, so this is a video we're going to watch. It's a presentation to the California Senate, and the company is Zesty AI that is presenting to them on wildfire modeling specifically.
I would like to welcome Attila Toth, CEO of Zesty AI.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Attila Toth, and I am the CEO of Zesty AI. And we are building analytical models to understand modern weather phenomena such as wildfires. And we have gained loss data from 1,500 historical wildfire events, most of them in California. To the best of my knowledge, this is the largest wildfire loss database in the industry. We complemented this loss database with real fire science from institutions like CAL FIRE and IBHS to make informed predictions of what will make properties more or less susceptible to loss. By incorporating science-backed details like overhanging vegetation in multiple defensible zones, as we heard from multiple speakers today, roof material, neighborhood density, slope of a parcel, ease of suppression, and many more, our model can determine wildfire risk absent of the bias introduced by human analysts or inspectors. Just real fires, real damage, and observable property features. So we build a model to assess risk across two dimensions. The first one is risk of wildfire, or as the industry calls it, frequency. That's a regional score that describes the probability of an address falling within a wildfire perimeter. The second one is risk of property loss or severity that describes the expected damage once an address falls within a wildfire perimeter. So we process all these scores for every home in America, while some insurers are leaving California because they cannot account for the new risk of wildfire. Others are partnering with Zesty AI to be able to expand coverage in California. One of our partners, Farmers Insurance, has committed to writing about 30,000 additional properties that would otherwise not have been written before. We're in an insurance crisis. Insurers should do their part by using innovative technology that recognizes property details known to reduce risk of loss and incorporate these details in their underwriting and rating plans. That technology is available today. Thank you so much for your time.
So I found this really fascinating, and we have no investment in Zesty AI. It was something that, they're actually working with many insurance companies in something like that where they can come in instead of just being so afraid, oh my gosh, Northern California or Southern California. California is just on fire. We don't want to touch it or be near it. But the geospatial AI that's being used, the data that's being collected, and these high hazard demographics, how can they really look at this and be able to provide something that is definitely more tasteful from a premium standpoint and also from a coverage standpoint? So what does this mean for HOAs, right? Isn't that why we're here? First thing that comes to my mind is that technology can help a board strategize components of its insurance program and also aid with future risk management. So you've got your here and now, you've got your operating, you have your reserves. It's really a multifold when you look at insurance and how it impacts an association. Definitely due to the cost, but also if you're underinsured. So seeing AI move in these areas that are providing tools, actual tools that can help human beings make better choices and understand what they're looking at. So, building the coverage tower. We're now going to move over into building the tower, evaluating the HOA's needs, and providing solutions through customization. Okay, some details. Core policies. What are some of the evolving risks popping up in these lines of coverage? We're going to delve into this a little bit by what we would consider some of the standard lines, the core lines of coverage, and some aspects that maybe not be so commonplace. General liability. So we know the basics, the PI, the BD, but what about PFAS? Have you heard about PFAS? Maybe you've heard of forever chemicals. It's been in the news, it's kind of been going around. We hear it with the plastics and everything. And many experts believe that this is kind of going to be the next asbestos, or is becoming that. And from an insurance standpoint, that's not a good thing. It means, health issues, which lead to lawsuits and so on and so forth. But basically, so what it is an environmental hazard that poses challenges, as most GL policies have an absolute pollution exclusion. So there is no coverage unless you go into the special market for environmental. But you don't know if you have this exposure in HOA. So what could this open up to? There could be significant costs. Let's say, from a GL perspective, so litigation, what about workers' comp? You've got employees, you have subcontractors coming on your property. Do we know if perhaps any of the ground soil could be contaminated, say here at Rossmore, or maybe it's at a neighboring something across the street. So that could cause damage to health issues because it's in the air, it's in the soil, it's coming up through. And that's something I don't think necessarily people are thinking about. You know, this is not all on you. You have your insurance brokers that are helping you out, your carriers, but these are things that are important and they are happening and they're gonna cause a lot of problems. And it's very difficult. Carriers, everyone's trying to get their arms around it to understand exactly what it is and what type of level of losses it could project in the future. So let's get out of a little bit of the doom and gloom there. Cyber. What are we seeing in the cyber arena? Ransomware attacks, data breaches, those continue to rise. Boards must be diligent in taking cyber exposure seriously and including that in your insurance strategy. Are there the right limits? What are we doing? Are we on top of this? Is our board on top? Do we understand this? So I think cyber is, you know, sometimes it's just a little premium that's attached to your master policy, and that's great. But, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about more like when you have a website, when you have certain exposures out there, and that could be hacked. That could be, I mean, it's becoming, we know it's so advanced with some of these attacks. I mean, how many of you just go into your phone and it's like, well, I have my password set on this. Why is it asking me to reinsert my password? Well, banks, everyone's, you know, getting ding, ding, dinged and having to turn things around. But we as HOAs, it's not a tech company, it's not a bank, it's not that, but there's still real exposures. Directors and officers. Before we jump into this line of coverage, which as board members is super important to you for obvious reasons, sometimes there's a little confusion with errors and omissions, E&O. So E&O coverage is specifically the liability from professional services or products. Whereas when we look at D&O, the D&O purpose is to shield board members from lawsuits related to governance decisions and to protect them from personal injury. So very different from a physical product, right? Or a service that you're providing. So it's protecting against, you know, we make decisions where humans sometimes we misstep. So having that protection behind those that serve on boards in a volunteer position. And I think the nice touch with this coverage is the personal liability that comes along with that protects you individually. So that being said, how are boards keeping up with it all? So there's new regulations going into effect. Earlier, talking about the different, you know, laws and regulations going in. So keeping up on that. Staying on top of HOA governance. Understanding the parameters of financial mismanagement, a misstep. So those all kind of go nice, neatly, what you should be thinking about, what I believe you should be thinking about when this coverage comes up to play in your insurance program, and maybe you're, gosh, why would we want to spend, you know, $10,000 on this? It's a bigger picture. And so it's something, I think it helps understand why, the why, and that's a big part of that coverage. Fidelity and crime. So good news, this market is stable. That means there's competition out there and you're not looking at reaching somewhere just to get this coverage from any carrier where costs are rising. So there is stability in this market right now within, and obviously within our business. Though, as AI-driven scams continue to grow, deep fakes, fraud schemes, and so forth, the industry is keeping a close eye on these developments and how they may impact losses in the future. So enjoy the stability in that line. There shouldn't be a lot of negotiating there. Okay. Let's see. So we're going to talk, this is beyond, looking at beyond, kind of now we've done the core coverages, moving it a little bit more, and we're going to talk about umbrella, excess and surplus lines, and parametric. Parametrics is going to be the third on this, but I'm just curious, is anyone familiar with parametric insurance? Well, good. I hope you find that enlightening then, because it is interesting, and it's one of the more evolving coverages. It's been around since the 90s, but it's really picked up speed because of the traditional market and what we're seeing and the limitations. So before we dig into this, I want to just touch on property for a couple minutes. I know it's a sore subject typically, but let's talk about what we know. We know the lack of property coverage can trigger lawsuits and expose insufficient funds for catastrophic repairs. Earthquake and flood insurance are essential for HOAs in high-risk zones especially, but it's not required. High premiums and deductibles make securing adequate insurance coverage challenging. So what should boards evaluate and consider when looking at property? Can the association's capital support a higher deductible to achieve lower annual premiums? Are you considering alternative insurance markets, such as Lloyd's of London, to explore more flexible coverage options? And again, we'll talk on the parametric coming up shortly. Comprehensive knowledge of the association's property exposures and insurance options will empower you as board members to make educated coverage decisions. All right, we've got E&S and umbrella, and we're going to talk a little bit about umbrella first. So unlike an excess policy that just increases the financial limits, okay? The umbrella policy actually expands the scope of coverage up and around. So with umbrella, it provides broader protection. It covers gaps between core policies, so say your liability policy, your D&O policy, and expands coverage beyond the limits. Okay, so you can't just go with $1 million liability GL policy, right? That's just, even if you're not a large association, with the litigious environment we live in, that's not going to cut it. So you're going to be looking at layers of umbrella and maybe also excess as you secure your insurance program. One thing you might not be aware of is that an umbrella policy can have its own terms and conditions, which could potentially cover losses excluded by the primary policy. So what does that mean? The specific coverage in that umbrella policy could drop down to provide coverage where that GL, for example, a non-owned, okay, so one example would be non-owned and hired auto, right? So you rent a car, you borrow, there's a hired car, what have you. That's excluded in a GL policy, a general liability policy. So where in the event that there is a loss in that area, the umbrella may drop down. So we call it drop down and cover that loss. So there are benefits to the umbrella that sometimes you're not even aware of. Let's see, I want to go back for a minute. So E&S, the excess and surplus. This market can offer coverage and insurability for difficult risks that the standard carriers will not write. So the expertise and specialization in E&S, along with the complement of AI-driven tools, provides capacity and solutions for these complex complex risks that maybe a traditional carrier will not even touch because they just don't have that expertise to understand what they're underwriting. I would say one clear example, and it's not the elephant in the room because it keeps coming up, is the need for this market in Northern California around wildfires. And I'm sure most of you are tired of hearing about that. But there are options in that market. It may be a little more restricted, it may be a little more expensive, but it's coverage, and it keeps board members safe from being liable for not providing insurance specifically for the association. And you can personally be held liable for not making the decisions to protect the association. You know, so you as a board member, you may recognize the costly premiums, but being self-insured is a really serious risk. So I think that not only with law trying to cover those in the reserves, which could be almost impossible, but also the lawsuits from homeowners after an event occurs. All right, so I think I had the impression that many of you are not familiar with parametric insurance. So I'm hoping this will be an exciting or interesting part of this. I mean, I know insurance isn't sexy, but it is important. So parametric insurance. And from your hands earlier, this I think is a topic that we can dive a little bit deeper into instead of kind of making more of a surface approach. And by the way, we talked about E&S, right? So this is predominantly accessed through the E&S market, this type of coverage, because it is a very specific coverage and it needs a specific expertise to underwrite it. So with a traditional indemnity policy, what that contract is, and that reimburses for the exact damages that result from an incident. So that's applied. So your traditional property policy, if you have a $10 million limit for that and the event occurs, you will pay your deductible and that's it. Parametric insurance, it relies on predefined triggers, such as wind speed, earthquake magnitude, and river height. So those are just examples of some of the triggers that would open this policy up. So by focusing on these measurable events, the insurance isn't an alternative to traditional insurance models. So and the reason being it can be a very positive alternative is the structure allows for quicker payouts, and it eliminates the need for standard lengthy loss adjustments. So your contract says if let's say the earthquake is 7.0, you're going to get X amount. We're not going to spend a couple months to figure out all the damage and everything, but we're going to give you this amount. Now, it may be under, it may be over. Parametric insurance can also cover a broader range of disaster-related losses, so including business interruption. And this is a line that is difficult to quantify. So it's a little softer, especially when you deal with you don't have sales to charge against. That can be difficult to get proper limits, whereas parametric can put it in these models and make an assessment of what the need is. There are disadvantages. As there are advantages, there are disadvantages, right? So the payout is triggered by predefined parameters, so wind speed or rainfall, the cause, rather than the actual damage. This can result in a payout maybe not aligning with the actual loss, like I just kind of touched on, maybe less. The premiums can be higher due to the complex modeling. There's data and collection costs associated with these specialized policies as well. And they are intended for a specific peril. So earthquake, for example. These don't provide the broader multi-peril coverage of a traditional commercial property policy like theft, fire, windstorm, etc. It's a little limited in scope. So with parametric insurance, I want to just touch on a couple of examples and then we'll move on. Earthquake. So an HOA in Napa, California, a seismically active area, for those of you in this room know, could have a policy that triggers a payout if an earthquake hits 7.0 magnitude. And it occurs within a defined area, maybe within 30 miles. The coverage would respond on the agreed amount per the contract's terms. So Napa, some years ago, had that big, earthquake. It devastated buildings that had been, retrofit, et cetera. And it took ages for these businesses and so on to actually get the money to try to rebuild if they had proper insurance. This comes in and makes a payout quickly to the lossee. Flood. An HOA in a floodplain could get coverage that pays a pre-agreed amount based on water levels, reaching a certain height in a specific river gauge. We've got the delta out there, right? A prompt payment is made immediately, so that addresses the restoration without a lengthy period, possibly causing mold and so on and so forth as you wait. And lastly, in the case of a hurricane, this type of policy might pay out a fixed amount if wind speeds exceed a certain threshold in a specified area. So these are the gauges. They take the gauges within, if it's this level or that level, and that actually is structured how the payout works in those losses. The last thing I just wanted to mention about this is, because we are talking about technology and we're talking about AI and how it works. So there are, big data is used in this. IoT sensors, you might have heard Internet of Things. Satellite and radar imaging and blockchain. Those are really critical to be able to bring these assessments together to provide such coverage. And reinsurers write this. Specialized providers like InsurTech, and then a couple traditional carriers like a Zurich, who's really large. But a lot of that E&S market, and you're looking into the reinsurers that can provide this type of risk coverage. Okay, I'm going to hand it back over to Heather. Thank you.
And I think the interesting thing, hello again. I think the interesting thing about what Ms. Duffy just was explaining was that those three types of non-traditional or extra policies, the umbrella, the E&S, and the parametric, can be used in a hybrid fashion or layered together or singly to fill coverage gaps potentially. So we're going to move on to strategic. We're at the end of our presentation. We're going to move on, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Strategic board actions, solutions for boards and HOAs, steps for securing optimal coverage. So first of all, I'm going to use a consulting phrase, which might sound annoying, but I come from the consulting world. So governance frameworks. So are you using an insurance governance framework to make sure that you're compliant and you're reducing your liability as a board member? In California, you can be sued for personal liability as well. So it really is imperative here. So insurance governance frameworks, all that means framework is a set of, as you know, processes, behaviors, and controls to optimize an outcome that you want, or operations, or financial, or insurance governance in this situation. So what are the best practices for risk mitigation for board members? First of all, as I just mentioned, coverage gaps aren't always the fault of the board, especially with the wildfire phenomenon going on in California. There hasn't been any case law yet in California where a board of an HOA has been sued because they didn't get enough insurance and they were at a loss when they had a wildfire or a natural disaster. That hasn't happened yet here, but that's an emerging area because we're just suffering all these natural catastrophes, it seems like very rapidly in the last few years. In Florida, though, here too. There have been issues where boards have been sued for maintenance negligence and not having enough insurance to cover maintenance issues. That's different from natural catastrophes, but again, it's an emerging area, so you do need to pay attention to that to protect yourself and your HOA. The duty of care as a fiduciary is part of the fiduciary duty suite of obligations that boards have of HOAs. And while it may be very difficult to obtain full coverage from a natural disaster point of view in California right now, especially with the wildfires happening, the failure to investigate, boards have a duty of care, fiduciary duty, and the failure to investigate, not just get the coverage, but the failure to investigate solutions that we're mentioning today could implicate a board member legally. So just be aware, investigate, do your due diligence, hire a specialist, hire a consultant if you need help, but do it because it means the world to the HOA and to you as well. So we've covered the fiduciary role. There's an interesting aspect to reserve studies. We're not going to go over the financial aspects of what you need to do with the reserve study, but from a insurance perspective, using the reserve study as a strategic roadmap for 1 to 30 years out, the lifespan of the components. You're using that as a roadmap because, from an insurance perspective, because insurance companies base the value of a property, or I'm sorry, the value of a policy, limits, payouts for you on the current cost of replacement, or RCV, replacement cost it's called. So getting accurate quotes and bids and proposals from vendors on what something would cost to rebuild now, 3 years, 5 years from now, 10 years, they have inflation engines that you can plug it in and see what the construction costs. We talked about construction inflation earlier in the presentation. Seeing what those realistic and accurate bids are of what something would actually cost to replace, full replacement cost. That's how an insurance company is going to determine your policy terms. So what your benefit is knowing what these costs really are, knowing what that says in your reserve study, and updating your reserve study can never hurt you. The second aspect of insurance governance frameworks that you should have is a policy development portion. So all that means is, what I just explained. It's getting the accurate RCVs, replacement costs, to update your reserve study. Policy procurement, due diligence. So how are you going to secure insurance coverage? What do? Talk to your broker? It goes beyond that. It's no longer vanilla. We've got to get more creative here with all that's going on. So you have carrier risk. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there's M&A going on in the insurance industry. Not necessarily for the world's largest or the US's largest insurers, but for alternate lines, as Jill had mentioned, not your core policies. There's an M&A, there's consolidation going on that makes certain types of coverages harder to get, and not to mention more expensive. So you don't want to, go to a carrier who is at risk for not being around or being absorbed into some other entity that wouldn't benefit your HOA. So you really need to do the due diligence on who you're using, who your brokers are, who your carriers are, and dig into that as a board member to make sure that not only you have the proper coverage, but you have, like I mentioned, you're limiting your carrier risk, especially now when insurers are leaving the market. Even though Ricardo Lara has mandated that insurance coverage in California, certain carriers, they need to write 85% of their market share, others are leaving, so that's an issue. You can use drone technology, I know we spoke a little bit about that today, to understand the liability of the property. So with the computer vision that they use and the technologies now that are evolving in drone accuracy and granularity, you can see more on your property. So that's not only good for updating your reserve study, and it's good to show your insurance carrier because they can see really where the risks are, but there also comes a risk to the board member of data privacy. So when you use a drone to look at certain aspects of your property, just be sure that you are aware that exposing homeowners' personal data not necessarily that could, not PII, that could take place, you know, from a license plate number, something that a drone could see maybe inside. It just, you have to be aware of the data privacy issues, and that's an evolving legal area in California, drone privacy, drone, you know, surveillance and privacy. So it's an evolving issue, but just something to be aware of as a board member of an HOA. So we talked about using innovative insurance coverage solutions, and some of that means buying at scale. Some HOAs, not all, might be good candidates to form a captive and then, you know, buy it in that mechanism. So we're not going to get into that today, but that's also another creative idea that you know, certain boards can explore. The last part of the governance framework is the portfolio management. Your insurance portfolio, all the different policies and coverages that you have or that you need to have. Are you doing systematic diligence on it? Well, you need to. You know, look at, there's, people don't think that, well, I'm compliant with, you know, I have what I need from my insurance carrier. Well, your CC&Rs, the state regulations, and the building codes where you live locally all play into the proper types of coverages that you need and the limits and the terms. So you need to think about those three things: CC&Rs, governing documents, state regulations, as insurance is driven by state regulations, you know, and local building codes. You need to be compliant with that as well in the insurance aspect. Also, the other part of portfolio management, and the last part is, you know, looking at changing in risk status. Are you, is your property, you know, where they're all aging? Has anything happened that's major that needs to be reported to your insurance company? That's physical property change. But what about financial risk to the HOA? You also need to be aware of that as a board member. And are you presenting a financial risk to your members? And then the last part is just financial due diligence. Just get your value for spend. You know, never take just the first thing that comes along. You need to really dig in to the proposals and get the best value that you can for every dollar for your members, for your HOA. The last piece, let me go ahead. Strategic use of the reserve study, road mapping, we talked about that. Let's go back. We can stay on this slide. So I'm going to speak to this a little bit. I just talked about road mapping, but what does a road map mean? It has several components, a real road map. It's not just financial on the reserve study. It's timelines, projects, capital improvements, resources available, vision, desires, objectives. All of those go into a roadmap. You can use the reserve study as the portion of that to really get your HOA on track. You know, as a board member, you want to leave a legacy to the next board members, to the subsequent board members. How do you do that? Develop a roadmap, not only for the present, but for the future. And that'll limit liability. That's another way to limit risk, seriously. And if you study it, and if you keep on to the roadmap, if you don't diverge from it. Know the exposures. Develop strong vendor relations. We talked about replacement cost. I have a real-time example. On my own HOA, I'm the president of my board, and I was reviewing the reserve study recently, and I noticed that there were a lot of components that were outdated. Either structurally they were repetitive or redundant, and the costs that the reserve study company put in were very inflated. Now, I went out and I got bids for everything and multiple bids for everything to show that the current costs were not what was being presented on the reserve study, which dramatically increased our funding rate just because we corrected the inaccuracies. So it does benefit to dig in to the reserve study. And again, insurance companies use replacement cost to determine your policies, and that's important. I think another best practice and a tool that boards can use is cost avoidance. It's different from cost savings. Cost avoidance is something where you can invest in something now to save money later. And long-term procurement. So we all have to purchase, you know, materials and vendor services for our HOAs. But how many of you have used an LOI, letter of intent? No? Oh, there's one? Good. So you can use, so a letter of intent, just like in business, you can use it as an HOA. You know, go to your vendors and say, hey, I want to purchase X amount of services or products from you at scale, we're going to make it attractive for you. And if I promise to buy, X, Y, and Z at this time frame, give me a favorable price and lock in that pricing. So that's a very smart way to do things, and I've done that in my own. The technology, one last comment about drones and technology. It's really useful for documentation. So that's another. Drone flyovers are not expensive either. There are companies that can do it for a couple grand, depending on how extensive the property is. And you can send this to your insurance company for accuracy and documentation, and that helps you when you negotiate your terms on your insurance policies. So that is all I have. Yeah,
I think we can open it up for questions. I think we have a few minutes. David? Gentleman in the back.
Comments or questions?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir?
Yes, you do. You need a mic. Okay.
My.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little slow this afternoon. Don't laugh. All right.
So when you push back on your insurance company when you were talking about replacement costs, did you also take into consideration the common area? What was common area? What were actual, the square footage of each unit? And because I did the same thing, we were able to get 1.5 million knocked off on the replacement cost because I pushed back. I just, I said, no, that's not the actual replacement cost because there are units and there's common area and we have garage areas and you're looking with your drones and you're seeing square footage of a building, but most of that building is taken up by restrictive common area or common area, which are like parking garages.
To answer your question, yes. I had multiple humans come out and measure the linear square feet of the common areas to make sure that it was separate. Yeah, I had humans do it.
Got one here?
Hi. Could you give us some parameters for wildfire like you did for earthquake? On the paramedic.
The parametric, yes.
Parametric insurance.
Sure, with the methodology. So it looks at obviously historical data, right? It looks at the specific region that it is in, and even smaller, maybe within a 30-mile range to 100-mile. It looks at weather patterns. And, one point I think I did miss saying is, not only are they underwriting this through the methods to figure out the triggers and the cost and everything and have these boxes basically they're putting it in, they're also monitoring. So one of those costs that comes with it, they're constantly monitoring. So prior to, they can see that, we hear on the news the storms and they have AI, but sometimes that storm doesn't come through or it comes through when you least expect it. So there are tools that they use to also monitor all those patterns. So really think of everything that can go into that. They're considering all of that. And I think that, the weather, erosion, tidal, there's so many things that go into it. So that's why, like with drilling down with wildfires, they're looking at the historical data of that area. What is the environment? What is the landscape, the geography? How is it changing? And then, so it's a constant monitoring of what could cause the next wildfire, if so predictable and it's not arson. Does that help?
One more back here. Did that answer the question? I guess so. Yeah. Okay.
7.2.
Yeah.
What would you set for a wildfire?
So wildfires, so that would be the degree of area. So maybe how many acres? The areas that is affected by. Was it affected by a 30-mile area, 200 miles, thousands, acres, or even taking in the miles and, the nuclear cameras. So having those types of aspects of monitoring, that's what they take into consideration in the methodology when they do make the pricing and coverage for the specific risk. Sorry.
So you talked about evaluating your insurance needs, and could you say what insurance is required by law?
Oh, yes. Yes, so work comp is compulsory. If you have employees, it's also something you should have if you have just contractors coming on your property. GL's required, the auto's required, property is required. And where you get into the mesh is, what are the limits? Because there's not necessarily mandatory minimum limits that you have to have when you look at GL or you look at property. D&O is, I would say, a required essential coverage, especially for an HOA. Absolutely. It's a business. You're running a business. And so any business needs such coverage when you have a board of directors.
And fidelity and crime.
Fidelity and crime. It is not necessarily required. I think it would be a mishap to not purchase it. It's typically not expensive and things can happen. Again, who has access to money? Is there petty cash, on premise, off premise, or does your community management company handle it all? So there's different degrees, but even purchasing it with that one-off thing that can happen, it's very minimal, the cost. And then it raises depending on your actual exposures.
I have a follow-up question. So is the only insurance, I'm only aware that workers' comp would be required by law. Are the others actually required by law, or are they just good? Are you just recommending it as a consultant?
That's a great question. So work comp is actually compulsory. And compulsory means there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't have it, not only you're not in compliance with the law. So fines, penalties, there's so many things that can come around that. So it's a little different when you look at required and compulsory. Auto is a compulsory line.
Okay, so if you want to look at the Davis Sterling book, we have that over here in Recon 360. I don't know if she has any left, but there are minimum requirements in Davis Sterling, so you should familiarize yourself with Davis Sterling. I think workers' comp, if you don't have employees, you don't have to have in workers' comp. It's really dumb not to.
Yeah, you're correct. My HOA, there are no employees, but there's still an exposure. If you have a contractor, a subcontractor's employee comes on the premise, they do some work, they fall, they get injured, they can file suit against the HOA. So for, again, minimal costs, having kind of that buffer.
That brings up an interesting point that I wanted to add too, board due diligence. So what Jill just said about having exposure, even if you don't have employees, someone gets hurt, you don't have workers' comp, that could expose the HOA. There's something in the insurance world called COI, which Jill can explain better than I, but it's Certificate of Insurance Tracking, COI tracking. There's now software and automated software and AI-driven software that can track this. So why it's a big deal for boards to know this, because you're ultimately responsible for having the proper insurance coverages on your HOAs. You're basically tracking not just your own insurance, but you're tracking the vendor's insurance. Because if a vendor's insurance lapses and you don't know that, obviously that presents a big liability for the HOA. And there's also other reasons to have COI tracking on your own policies. If, for example, you have a core policy and then you have an umbrella to cover excess and surplus policy, sometimes if a base policy doesn't trigger the umbrella policy or the INS policy properly, you won't get that coverage. And if you're not tracking the certificates properly to see that, it creates a liability. You can explain that more, but that's another reason COI tracking as a diligence for boards.
You're going to get the hook. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
For those of you who have gotten a lot of comments and a lot of questions about what ECHO does and what's coming up, I wanted to point out our resource panels. These are in-person meetings that are coming up soon. January 20th, 21st, 20th, 27th, and January 28th, 28th. Actually, McMills Duffy is going to be doing a program on January 21st here to do a workshop with the Rossmore folks. So we're looking forward to having everybody participate in those, or if you're interested, it's all on our website. This is our last in-person larger event of the year. We do 3 a year. We do 1 in Southern California and 2 in Northern California. Those are the dates. Next year, I think we're going to be going to a different location than here. A little bit, a little change of location. San Ramon, I believe. Okay, December 4th, we have a community conversation. Hey, this is important for you folks if you want to listen, because it has to do with the non-functional turf. Who's affected by non-functional turf out there, Race? We've seen bills, $8 million estimates on the replacement of non-functional turf, which is a lot of cost. And this particular presentation is not going to be done by a landscape company. It's not going to be done by an attorney. It's not going to be done by a management company. It's going to be done by a water association that manages, that has all of the water resource agencies as their members. And this kind of was dropped on them, and they were required to do the implementation and the enforcement without, of course, without any money. So that's a bit of a problem for all of the agencies. They're a little bit less than happy to do this. The non-functional turf bill was pushed forward by Southern California interests, and Northern California is going to be paying an awful lot for it. So this is a very interesting conversation, and you'll hear a different perspective, and we're excited to hear them and have them present it. I think if you have non-functional turf, you're going to want to be there. It's online. It's a webinar, so please be there. We do have a community conversation on financial management systems. Was postponed from December. It's going to be in January now because we had a conflict there. Board Members Club meets the Tuesday, January 13th. We're excited to have that one. If you're a board member or a former board member, you can attend. You have to be a member of ECHO, of course. And then you can attend those peer-to-peer conversations. And those are really a lot of fun. We have a lot of board members here. We have Dave Bonfilio, who's our moderator, and we have these really nice conversations. So if you're interested in doing that, talk to Connor. I don't know where Connor is. He's running around here somewhere. And then finally, have a safe trip home. We really appreciate everybody coming today. I'm going to pick the last winner and see if they're still here, because we lost a bunch of people. You're right here? Okay. Oh, you're Omni, though. I can't give you it to you. Here we go. I hope you're here. Victoria Hackett. Is Victoria here? If you're here, you got to scream. Well, going once, Victoria. Going twice. Going 3 times. She's not here. Sorry about that, Victoria. Here we go. Richard Salvato. Is Richard Salvato still here? No. And this is why you stay long, right? Okay. Mike Tomlin. Oh, there he is. I know Mike Tomlin. Hi, Mike. Congratulations. So, come on up and get your prize. I want to say thank you to everyone else. Thank you out in cyberspace for coming. We had 70 people out there. We appreciate it all. Yeah, I did already. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a safe drive home.